All right, looks like we have everyone here from the planning board, planning department. Any reason we need to wait? Are we ready to go? Curtis, you all right?
I don't see any reason to wait, and I see various different people from the applicants' parties here, so.
Yep. All right, so with that, I will call to order this meeting of the Easthampton Planning Board for Tuesday, January 19th, 2021. All planning board members are appearing remotely, and the meeting is being recorded. If anything goes wrong here where we have to continue this meeting or we can't complete the meeting, the remaining items on the agenda will be continued administratively to February 2nd. And with that, is there anyone here to speak to anything that is not on the agenda tonight? Everyone will have a chance to comment on items that come up, but if there's anyone who wants to speak to something not on the agenda, you can either raise your physical hand if your camera's on, or your virtual hand on Zoom, or you can do *9 on your phone, or even *6 to unmute yourself. All right, seeing nothing, we'll move along to planning board minutes. Everyone have a chance to look at the minutes? Great. So the first one up is December 15th, 2020.
Motion to approve the minutes from December 15th, 2020.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor on December 15th meeting minutes, sorry. Jim?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
Austin?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I am an aye. Next up is January 5th, 2021.
Motion to approve the minutes from January 5th, 2021.
Seconded.
All right, to approve the January 5th minutes. Jim?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
Austin?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I am an aye again. I do think so. When the agenda came out, we had the A&Rs put at the end of the meeting. I think generally our practice is to do those up front, and I think it probably makes sense to handle both of those. I think the easier one is probably the Oliver Street one. So maybe we can take a motion to take that out of order.
Go ahead. Harry's got a question, I think.
No, I don't. I'm just reaching over here.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I motion to move the two A&Rs as the next two items on our agenda, starting with the one Jesse recommended.
I'll second that too.
All right, moving the A&Rs to next on the agenda. Jim?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
Austin?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I am an aye. All right, so first up, we'll do the Chickawin Oliver Street A&R. Is there someone here? I see a Chickawin out there. I'm sure I'm pronouncing your name wrong. You can.
How do you say it?
Chickawin and Bill Chickawin. Hello, everyone.
Hi. So, do you want to just give a brief rundown? We've seen the plans, but just sort of what's going on and what we're looking at.
Yeah, it's basically a land swap, square footage for square footage, so nothing changes except for the shape of the lot.
And so no changes to frontage or anything like that, right?
No.
Yep. Any comments or questions from planning board members?
It looked real simple and logical to me.
Agree.
Planning department, Curtis, any issues with this?
No,
Questions?
I'll defer to Jeff if there's any commentary. My apologies.
Okay. Jeff, any comments or questions about the Oliver Street A&R?
No, no comments or questions.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the members of the public on the Oliver Street A&R? Again, you can raise your hand on Zoom or in person, *9 on your phone. All right, I see none.
I motion to endorse the A&R for Chickawin Oliver Street.
Seconded.
All right, movement to endorse the A&R. Jim?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
Austin?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I am an aye. So I think, Jeff, do you have hard copies of these plans somewhere for me to come and sign?
Yeah, right now they're in the planning department office, so I think between Curtis and I, we can find a time to make that happen.
Okay.
I'll be here all day for the rest of the days of this week. So
okay, so we'll find a time. We'll hopefully get you signed copies by the end of the week.
Good.
Okay.
Great. Thanks so much. Have a good night, folks.
Thanks for your time, everyone.
do you have, was the email that I reached you, the Chickawins at, was that a good email to reach you all at?
It is, yes.
Great. So I'll email you there when I have a signed copy of the A&R to provide to you, and we'll just meet in the parking lot behind City Hall, and I'll hand it over to you there. Okay?
Very good. Thank
So long
you.
as that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Curtis.
You're very welcome.
All right, excellent. Perfect. So next up is the other A&R. This is the Scallion Lepage Reservation Road A&R. And it looks like we've got counsel to address that. Attorney Lane, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And thanks for having us. Jeff Squire from Berkshire Design Group is with me as well.
Welcome.
So I believe, and I don't know, Jeff Bagg, if you had something you wanted to say before I start talking, or, okay.
Oh, sorry. No,
No worries. I saw you were off mute, just Zoom etiquette. In any event, so there's some history to this, and I believe that the documents that I provided to Jeff were provided to you, are in front of you, but I'm happy to kind of walk you through these things. So the property itself has history. My clients purchased it 18 years ago. And it is this large plot now in 6 subplots on Reservation Road, just before the Mount Tom Reservation land begins. And so it's at the end of the road, which is gravel and steep. In 2008, when they submitted the A&R, it was certainly determined that these are legal plots for development and no further approval was required under the subdivision control law. However, folks in the city involved at that time were concerned enough about the condition of the road, being a gravel road and being as steep as it is, and the hillside being as steep as it is there, that my clients had to agree to a covenant, a restrictive covenant on the property in general that would force them to come back to the city at a later date with further plans for improvements to the road that would essentially satisfy the city's overall concerns for traffic safety, life safety at the properties, water management, and the like. The terms of that covenant that are most relevant are cited on the second page of my letter. And essentially, these lots 2 through 6, no building can be put on there and no permit can be issued by the city until we have done what we're doing today, which is submitting further plans for improvements to the road that would satisfy the city, city engineering, the planning board, that the portion of the road fronting these 6 plots has been approved and extended in such a way that, let me move this over here, that it's got sufficient width, suitable grade, adequate construction to provide for the needs of vehicular traffic, stormwater management in relation to the proposed use of the land. And also just to make sure that municipal services can access the land where these buildings are erected. So I get that none of us know exactly what this process is, and that some folks back in 2008, none of whom I believe are on this video, came up with this covenant. And so what my client has been doing for the last 2 years with city planning is trying to get to an understanding of what are the improvements that would garner this approval from city planning, from city engineer and the planning board here. Jeff Bagg has been so wonderful in just facilitating conversations between me, Jeff Squire, and DPW and the Easthampton Fire Department. And as well, Captain Constantine has gone, I believe, above and beyond in really cooperating with us. He invited me to go out and walk the land. Jeff Squire and I joined him there in October. So we could really just come up with a checklist of what is it that the city, emergency services, and engineering would want to see done here. And I addressed this in detail in my letter because what we then did was have Jeff Squire draw up new plans that are not filed with the registry. We just submitted them here for this purpose to show these are the improvements that will be made to the road. Because that's what this is really focused on, is the road improvements that would allow the city to say, yes, you can now start putting buildings on here, because that's what my clients need in order to start marketing and selling these. So Dan Constantine made very clear that the initial concern is just the accessibility of emergency vehicles. And after walking the road, he was satisfied that the grade was accessible and that even left as a gravel road, it's accessible. But that the real concern would be, how do the emergency vehicles get up this narrow road on the side of a hill, have the ability to turn around, and be able to run water from the nearest hydrant. So what he came up with was the, if you look at these plans, the most recent plans that Jeff Squire created December 2020, it spells out what we're doing here. The old Tower Road intersects with Reservation Road, kind of right in the middle of the plots. And at that intersection, there's going to have to be created a turnaround. The fire department also indicated that if their turnaround is there, which is essentially in right in front of lot 3, I'm sorry, lot 2, 4, in front of lot 4, they feel confident that emergency vehicles and water for emergencies can be brought as far as lot 5.
Excuse me, Mr. Lane, would it be possible to bring up the plans so that you can point these out as you discuss them? I think that might be helpful.
I can, and
or maybe someone
I'm so sorry. Can you all give me a second here? I ran into technical difficulties with Zoom, and
we might be able
the computer that I have the plans on is not the computer that I'm on for the video. Give me one second.
We may have the ability to put them up.
If you do, that'd be great.
That's easier. Curtis, do we have that?
Well, first, I want to make sure, Jeff Squire, do you want to put them up or should I put them up? You've been made a co-host, so you can do it. And since you're associated with the applicant, you may be better empowered to do so.
If Curtis, if you've got them there, that would be great. I've got again on a different computer, so.
Called my bluff. I've just got to go find them. Don't worry about it.
Put me on the spot. Sorry.
Let me get on my different computer, and then I can bring them.
I've got them up. If you want to make me a co-presenter, I can bring them up now.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay, yeah, I will do exactly that.
Well, while we're waiting for that, Peter, or maybe this is a Curtis or a Jeff question. I've seen a lot of stuff in here about the Easthampton Fire Department and Captain Constantine. I don't see him here. Do we have anything in writing? Has anybody from the city spoken to him, Jeff or Curtis? I'm just trying to figure out where we are on that.
I've had several discussions with Captain Constantine, and I think they requested one additional change in the HOA document, the Homeowners Association. And my understanding from Attorney Lane is that change was made. And so to be honest, I was expecting either Captain Constantine to be on the call or to write a letter. And unfortunately, we don't have either of them. But I do, I would provide in good faith that the fire department was accepting of this concept. It's taken a while to get to the HOA. So at some point, having Attorney Lane just talk through that. And I think in the meantime, I'll email Captain Constantine and see if he can maybe hop on. But I do know that they were supportive of where the applicant has ended up with this.
I mean, Jeff, even if you can email him or text him and just confirm that he's okay with this with the subsequent change to the HOA document, I don't think we need to drag him into a Zoom if we can just have some more verification of that.
Yeah, understood.
And you have
Peter, does that? Oh, sorry, Curtis. Yep.
Everyone has the most recent HOE document that was forwarded very late this afternoon.
Yep.
And Peter, does that sound like your understanding of where you left it with Captain Constantine as well?
Absolutely. That is exactly where we left it. He received my last draft Wednesday last week, emailed back that he had one minor change, which he put in, and I've accepted it. And then today submitted further changes to the HOA that satisfy, I believe, what Easthampton Fire Department is concerned with and what city engineer is concerned with as well, which I'll get to.
Okay, great. So then before that, I cut you off. You were talking about the getting water up to lot
right.
5, I think, right?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'm going to do a quick change of hardware here because I'm going to want to put the HOA document up, and I don't know if you guys have all got it.
I have it.
Chris has that too.
I got it all. All right, great, thanks. So, two documents are submitted to kind of address all of these concerns. One are the new site plans from Jeff Squire that were made after this walkthrough with Captain Constantine. The other is an HOA document to really spell out homeowners' responsibilities and acceptance of responsibility and liability for the road as well. So what the fire department wanted to see was the turnaround right there in the middle, which we have now designs for. Of course, DPW wants to see other improvements to the road, including the water drainage, and everybody, but especially fire department, wanted to see that the road is left at a passable width of 16 feet at all times, which means in the winter, plowing will have to account for that, and snowbanks cannot encroach on that 16 feet of passable space. The other big concern in getting water to all the property was that if the turnaround is at that location, fire department is only confident that it can reach lot 5 at the farthest. Lot 6 has to be left off of development at this time. The problem is lot 6 is right up against the state reservation land, and there's no other place on that road to create a turnaround. And the distance from the hydrant means that the trucks, really, it would be a stretch to get to 6, and once they were up at 6, they'd have no way of turning around. So what my clients have agreed to do at this point is just take lot 6 off of any consideration at the time. They're going to hold it back, retain ownership of it, and it still has the covenant applying to it because road improvements will not extend up to that point. I don't know exactly what their plans are going to be for it in the future, but it will still be subject to the restriction under the 2008 covenant. So those were the 3 main concerns that fire department raised. The intersection at Reservation Road and Tower Road for the turnaround, maintenance of the road for passable 16 feet at all times, including removal of snow and ice, and then lot 6 be excluded. The other concerns were these life safety concerns on the property themselves, because EFD was concerned that they, because of the location of this property, of these properties, the time it would take them to reach, for emergency vehicles to reach them, may be a little longer than usual. So they wanted that addressed, which is addressed explicitly in the HOA, which I'll go into in a second. But they also wanted a requirement that all homes built on lots 2 through 5 are equipped with a 13D sprinkler system, which would really just be a life safety measure to, give the fire department a little bit of a cushion there, so that if there's an actual fire, there's a sprinkler system hitting it before the fire department arrives. They wanted us to also then explicitly point out that the 13D sprinkler system is only a mandatory life safety measure, and that homeowners still have to expect a delay in the arrival of emergency vehicles. We have done that. if Chris,
Yep.
if you would be so kind as to put up the HOA document.
Sure. Can you see it now? Or do I have to reshare?
Yeah, I think you got to reshare.
Okay. Give me 1 second. Figure out how to do that. So I have stop share and then reshare. All right. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes, great.
Yes.
Success.
So, so what we've done with the HOA document is Article 2 restrictions is really the relevant pieces for all of this. It's where we addressed all of the city's concerns. So as you can see in paragraph 1 of Article 2, maintenance of the roadway is completely the responsibility of the homeowners. And it's only the homeowners of lots 2, 3, 4, and 5, because as I've said, lot 6 is specifically excluded from this process right now. The roadway maintenance requirements requested by the city will be handled by the homeowners, each paying a quarter of the costs of it all. I was told last week after I submitted this draft that city DPW, I believe, had concern, or the city engineer had concern that the roadway is still steep and wanted it explicit that homeowners would not look to the city for responsibility for any aspect of the maintenance of the road. And so I simply included that sentence. We are clear on that. I believe the spirit of paragraph 1 was already that the homeowners were accepting full responsibility for the road. But now we've made it explicit in the last sentence of paragraph 1 of the maintenance of roadway section. The maintenance of roadway section also addresses the other concerns of the fire department that we talked about in terms of the passability, the width of the road, snow and ice removal. The home sprinkler systems are addressed specifically in paragraph 2, so that each home will have to have this building code compliant 13D system with the site to the CMR, where we would find that in Massachusetts code. And as Captain Constantine had suggested, we're making clear to any prospective buyer and homeowner that the 13D sprinkler systems are intended only as a mandatory life safety measure. This is not going to prevent the loss of your home, and that homeowners still are going to have to expect a certain amount of delay for emergency vehicles to arrive. Then let's see. There is a conservation restriction on this land. And so all of the lots, particularly as they're depicted in the original plans submitted with the A&R in 2008. And I don't know if anybody has a copy of that there.
I do.
Thank you.
Stop share and go back over to it. So give me 1 second.
Chris, I really appreciate this. Thank you.
That's fine. No problem. So it's sideways. I don't know if we can flip it around, but
It's okay. I just wanted to have us look at this so you can see that on this plan, the what is that? The southernmost part of all lots is the part that abuts the Mount Tom Reservation, and that's got the restrictive covenant that remains with it permanently. Homeowners Association plans, the Homeowners Association document now makes clear that conservation restriction remains, and homeowners cannot build on those areas. Again, that are there on those site plans. Those are the plans that were submitted with the A&R. But we make that clear additionally in paragraph 4 of Article 2 of the HOA document. that there is this conservation restriction. If I am not missing anything, I think that covers the kind of history and the concerns that have been raised and that we've used the homeowners association document to address. Chris, would you mind? Oh no, we're all set. Conservation restriction. Yep. So again, it was that section right there on the restrictions where we tried to address all of this with a single HOA document. I'm not sure whose idea it was to use an HOA document in this way. I think it might have been Jeff Bagg. And again, I appreciated that input as well. It's a really flexible, I found it to end up just being a totally flexible thing. I would draft it, I'd send it to Jeff Bagg. He'd tell me what the concerns were. I would go back to the drawing board with it. With that too, I'd also like to say, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sure Jeff Squire would as well. Also, I know this is a lot to digest, and I know we're all kind of doing this without a roadmap. Happy to present this tonight, and come back next time for further questions if anybody felt like they wanted more time to digest this. I'm really kind of open, but I think that's the information that I needed to present. And from here, happy to just field any questions that anybody has.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. That's really helpful. So I will open this up to questions to the planning board, but my first question, it's always a little funny to have to ask the applicant's attorney this, but the way I envision this is sort of, we would take a vote to accept the proposed roadway onto the property and sort of the continued maintenance of the homeowners association agreement going forward. Does that make sense? That's how we would condition it, just so tomorrow you can't adopt a different HOA agreement?
I think that does make sense. And again, my understanding of what I need out of this for my clients is some determination from you all that this works, which then we would have to file, because my prospective buyers would never get approved title insurance unless they saw that the city was approving of our plans wherever they're recorded. So
right. Well, and they can't get a building permit, right, until we give that approval anyways. Okay. All right. I just wanted to think through the process of what we're actually working towards here. Any other planning board members have questions or comments about this? Chris?
I have a question. So in the plan view, it looks like that there's going to be city sewer and city drain, stormwater collection in the street. Is that correct? Connecting to the city's system?
So there is city sewer that we're connecting up with. The storm drainage, we are picking up, I think, the last one or two drain basins on that stretch of roadway. There's a couple of catch basins now that discharge directly to the property across the street from Reservation Road onto private property. So what we're doing is taking those offline and connecting those to the existing drainage system that's in Reservation Road.
Okay. And then there was mention of a hydrant. Where is the hydrant in this? I don't see one on the plan.
It's not near it's not near these development lots. It's further down the road, closer to East Road, which is why the fire department was saying there's going to be a limit to how far they can get water up there.
Yeah, understood. Okay, so what happens if, say, the sewer or the drain needs maintenance? Is that something that the homeowners do, or is it city-owned that they would go in and do the maintenance and then repair the gravel road? How does that work? So
it's my understanding that the homeowners are responsible for the maintenance of this road.
And including the utilities below it?
Well, so I got to be honest, I don't know that we've fully had this conversation, and I haven't heard specifically from DPW on this. Jeff Bagg, do you have a sense of any of this?
It's a good question. We really want to make sure this is kind of like clear for future, users all around. That may be worth clarifying. Yeah. I could hazard the guess, which is that the assumption of DBW is that area that we're talking about, that stretch, would fall under the responsibility of the homeowners.
Yeah, and that's my understanding as well, which is why we drafted it the way we did and why I included the line of full responsibility for the road maintenance.
Gotcha. So the city picks up their responsibility somewhere down at this manhole, or maybe somewhere between these manholes, these sewer manholes. Well, this is a new manhole here, so I guess this is where the city would, or the homeowners would start. I guess we need to clarify exactly where their responsibility begins.
Sure.
Yeah, that might be, and so that sounds like it's probably a conversation to have with DPW. Does that sound right, Peter?
It does sound correct, and I would like to have it and be clear on it.
Yeah, especially, and also the drain system, the stormwater system here. Looks like you're putting new drain manholes and pipes in here too. So, exactly where does the responsibility split is my only question.
Yeah, and it sounds, Peter, it sounds like your clients are assuming that they and then the subsequent homeowners will take on that responsibility. So it's probably not like a fight. It's just a matter of clarifying language in there so that it's very clear to people 10 years from now what's going on when there's a manhole.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect characterization. I had, my only concern with this when it was raised about making clear that there's homeowners' sole responsibility was just how that would impact future homeowners' ability to get insurance or things like that. I'm very clear this is doable. It happens all the time in Western Massachusetts on private ways. It'd be a bigger problem in a rural area, but in a city like Easthampton, I don't think there's going to be any problem there. But yes, we should talk to the city engineer and get clarification on that all.
Okay, great. Chris, any other questions?
Nope.
Harry, I think you had your hand.
Yeah, who's putting in the guardrails on the telephone poles?
It's also homeowners' responsibility. But guardrails, yes. But what did you say? Telephone poles?
Yeah.
There are already existing poles along that road now. It's really just the guardrail that needs to be added.
Well, telephone poles aren't in the best of shape. I go up there all the time. I know that property very well. I was on the planning board back in 2008 when they approved this thing.
Oh, okay.
And that's being built right on the side of that mountain. And it's to me, that grade in that thing is just unbelievable. I just can't imagine owning a house on the side of that hill like that, personally.
No, you build them in.
It poses some engineering issues, I'm sure, but looks like they figured out a way to make it work.
Well, I'm sure.
So maybe the are there new poles going in? I don't see them on here.
There aren't any that are shown on this plan that are proposed. It really will be at the jurisdiction of the determination of the utility company as to whether, the poles that are there are adequate to run the new power or not. It's, we're really not in a place to say.
Yeah.
But there are poles there now, some of which have been replaced recently.
Right. They're showing existing utility pole to remain. And then it looks like another one here that's probably going to be remaining.
Yeah.
And then this one.
Okay, so maybe just getting the HOA document to also reflect sort of responsibility for maintenance of the guardrails and any of the infrastructure that's going in would probably help clarify things. Harry, any other questions?
Before this is built, will this come before the planning board again, or is this it?
I understand that this would be it. It's developable as of right. And that the only requirement still before development was further city approval of these road improvements.
Yeah, Harry, this is just an A&R, right? It's not a subdivision. So,
well, I understand that, but
yeah. So we normally in an A&R we wouldn't even have the second sort of look at it, but I think because you and your prior board put this requirement in here, we're evaluating the roadway before it goes in. But my understanding is that it wouldn't necessarily have to come back to us for these residential lots.
This is the proposed guardrail, Harry, that they're proposing to put back.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
Mm-hmm. Is paving the road not an option in this? That's a great question.
It is cost prohibitive, I think is the real issue, is that it just would be...
What is the
it would
grade?
Make this a lot harder to do. Mm-hmm. So sorry.
What's the angle, the grade of the road?
It's somewhere between 10 and 12%, depending on where you measure.
I can't imagine the erosion on that road. They're making that out of gravel. It's going to be unbelievable.
Well, I guess to the extent there's maintenance issues, Harry, that will be the obligation of the homeowners association. I mean, you may very well be right. In a few years, they may regret that, but that will be at least not a city problem. And it sounds like the DPW has also, or the city engineer has reviewed the stormwater issues related to it as well. So hopefully that won't be a problem.
It's the people who live on the other side of this thing with the private property. They're going to receive all the gravel that's washed out into their property. That's the problem.
I guess at the end of the day, approval not required means approval not required.
Well, we're a little more nuanced than that, I think, in this step, because we do have to approve the roadway. But yeah, I mean, I do think some of these things are outside of our area. And especially where I think the stormwater part is being reviewed by the city engineer.
Right. And the paved roadway too. I mean, he stated a paved roadway would have been preferred, but was not included as part of the proposed plan. You know, he's not saying it's required. He's just making a statement.
Right.
I have Jeff's assurance, and that's meaningful to me. And this is a little different than a normal A&R. I wonder if the applicant and you, Jesse, and maybe the rest of the board would be amenable to keeping this on the agenda for one more meeting in the hope that we can get the fire department on just to comment. I would just, I do trust everything everyone's saying, but I would just love to be able to hear from him directly and maybe, ask some questions directly.
Yeah, and Jim, I think that's a great idea. I think also, I know you dropped off and came back on. You might have missed, but we're hoping to get a little more clarity in the HOA document about responsibility for maintenance of the utilities and the other infrastructure improvements. So it probably makes sense to have it come back either way, just to hear from the fire department and see that revised language.
Thank you, Jesse.
I think that makes great sense. Any other questions from the planning board? Planning department, any other comments or questions?
No, I think this is good. I appreciate Attorney Lane and Mr. Squire taking the time. And this has been a while to get to this point. I think knowing that these may be the final kind of questions from the board, I think is helpful. I do agree. I think getting the fire department either in a letter or to attend is meaningful. I did just communicate with Dan, but I don't think he's able to hop on this meeting. The only other thing I think we would do in the interim, if we continue to the next meeting, is just take another look at what the vote would be and make sure the vote is structured correctly to connect all the dots together. So that would just be another thing we would do.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like when Peter and I were talking at the beginning, like I think sort of a vote that's accepting the roadway but conditioned upon, maintaining the HOA agreement in the form that it currently is, or something like that, to make it clear that is an ongoing obligation. I think that would make sense. It'd be helpful.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions from members of the public? We don't usually do a whole lot of public comment at A&Rs, but this is a little different. So anybody with any questions or comments from the public, you can raise your hand if you're on camera, or virtual hand on Zoom, or a *9 on your cell phone. I don't see anything. So with that said, Jim, I think your suggestion of continuing this to the next meeting makes a lot of sense, just to at least dot our I's and cross our T's.
Totally,
When is that?
Totally agreeable with that.
You good? Okay, thank you, Peter. So that would be February 2nd.
Great.
Okay.
February 2nd.
motion.
Yeah, would that work for you, Peter?
I'm almost certain it will, and yes, it will.
Great.
I motion to continue the A&R for Scallion Lepage Reservation Road till February 2nd.
Second.
All right, to continue to February 2nd, Harry.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
And I am an aye. Peter and I lost Jeff here. Jeff Squire, there you go. Thanks, guys, very much for this. This was really helpful. It's not a typical situation, so hopefully we can just get this thing over the finish line next meeting.
Thanks so much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.
All right. So next up on the agenda is CrossFit Stronger Than Yesterday LLC. But I understand there's a request to withdraw this application. Is there someone here from the applicant tonight?
No, the applicant stated she wouldn't be able to make it, and I'll read her email.
Great.
For the record. Hello, Curtis. I'm writing to let you know. This is from Rachel Diamond, identified in the application for 168 Northampton Street as the applicant, applying on behalf of CrossFit Stronger Than Yesterday LLC to operate a personal service establishment, a fitness center at that location. She writes on Friday, January 15th at 4 p.m. Hello, Curtis. I'm writing to let you know that we would like to be removed from the hearing on January 19th. Obashan Hardware is expanding with the closure of Manchester Hardware, and they bought us out of our lease. So we will be moving out of the 168 Northampton Street location at the beginning of February. I wanted to thank you for all your help and for pointing me in the right direction to get our application underway. I further spoke to the applicant to ensure that they weren't going to be relocating somewhere else in Easthampton where they might be able to just continue this and amend the application to the new location. But as they do not have clear plans at the present point, they're just looking to be removed.
Okay, so I think usually we treat that as sort of a withdrawal without prejudice.
Right.
So
I don't believe she's interested in applying in the near future, but in case she is, I would imagine she is asking to withdraw without prejudice.
That's sort of our default practice anyway, so I think that makes sense. So I think, I guess I would take a motion to allow the applicant to withdraw their application without prejudice.
I so move.
Seconded.
All right, allowing withdrawal without prejudice. Harry.
Aye.
Austin.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
And I am an aye. All right. Next item on the agenda is Palmer Paving Corp. And I discovered after our last meeting that a former firm client is taking a position on this application. So I am going to recuse myself from this going forward, and Mr. Zarvis will take over. And I'm also recused from the High Five Inc. one. I think the only thing left on the agenda later tonight is the transmittal of the open space recreation plan, which I don't think is an action item tonight, but I will take this opportunity to not return tonight, and feel free to do with that whatever you want at the end of the meeting, folks.
Have a good night, Jesse, and thank you.
Thank you all,
Thanks,
guys.
Jesse.
Okay, first off, I'd like to begin with an apology. I am having a little computer trouble. I had to switch to my phone here tonight. Hopefully you can hear me okay on this device.
Yep.
Curtis, as we go through these two, and I'm going to start with Palmer Paving in just a moment, because I'm on my phone now, I don't have the documents up that I normally have to help me navigate this process, so I'm going to depend on you to pull up any supporting documentation and show it if required. So I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. We're going to start with Palmer Paving tonight as the first of the next two items on the agenda. Is the applicant here to speak on the issue?
Yes, Jason Capel and Kevin De Silva.
Good evening. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about what's happened since our last meeting, if you have anything new for us?
Yeah, in our last meeting, there was a discovery that we had some mislabeled contours. And so we went out to the site, we grabbed some GPS coordinates and some spot elevations with a sub-centimeter GPS. We improved the topography in that one area of the map. It was probably obscured by vegetation when the drone flight was conducted. And then we also provided supplemental photos of the berm to supplement information that we had previously provided.
Great. Can we see some of those? Can we put those up?
You can share them, or I can. Either one of us could. Jason, which would you prefer?
If you have them readily available, that would
This time I do.
I remember Chris pointed out a misnumbered contour line. So I want to look at that specifically. Chris,
Yeah, and I still have a fair amount of questions on this. It's a really challenging survey. So we better bring that up and take a look at it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and Kevin De Silva is on the line. He's the one who put the map together, so I may defer some responses to Kevin.
Fair enough.
Just so the public knows, I'm going to start by going through this stuff and continuing along on our process. We did receive some additional letters and comments. We will be reading those, and the public will have an opportunity to speak. We're just going to kind of walk through this step by step. And right now we're starting with the contour lines.
And I'm bringing us to the point in question right now. It's just taking a second to load.
Okay.
All right.
So I don't know if you want to discuss it, or if you want me to just jump in with my questions. I don't know if you could. Okay. So I've got some questions with the spot elevations because I'm looking at your contours. You have 2-foot contours. You're if you scroll in a little bit, Curtis, to the 136 elevation, right to the right of the 96.83 dimension. Yeah, so that's good. So you've got you're coming up from the water, 128, 132, 136 contours, and then right after the 136 contour, you've got a spot elevation of 144, and then you cross over what is, I believe, a 142 contour. And then you've got another 144 spot elevation, 144.4. Then you've got over to the left 137.25, which seems to make sense next to the 96.83 dimension there. You've got a 137.25. And then if you keep scrolling over, you've got 136.34. And then again over to the left, it's 142.64. And I don't see how the contours are matching up with any of this.
So when I went out onto the site, I tried to pick up the crest of the berm and the inner toe to clearly show that there is no discharge off of the site at that time. I did not update the contours with this additional information.
Okay. That makes it clearer. Yep. So the 136.34 and the 137.24 are the toe elevations?
Correct. The inner toe of the berm.
Okay. And the top of the berm is the 142.64, 143.48, 140.92, 144.19, if going from left to right?
Yep.
Okay.
Makes sense. All right. Well, anything else in there, Chris?
Okay. Well, I'm trying to figure out how it all ties in. It's hard to understand this when the contours haven't been updated to understand really how this works.
Did you say you had some pictures as well?
Yeah. So I'm just going to back up a little bit. I for anyone who is on the call, there's a proper way to share information, and there's an improper way to share information. So about a week ago, someone, I don't know who, because they were masked, obviously for COVID, came to my house at about 8:00 at night and knocked on my door and asked me if I was who I was, and I yes, I am Chris, and handed me photographs, didn't identify who he was, and walked away. Said Palmer Paving, and then left. So I was left at my doorstep with 8 photographs, which is frustrating because, in this time of COVID and our political upheaval, in the middle comes someone coming to my house at nighttime, unexpected, without asking to come to my house, not identifying who he was, unable to be identified, and then left. It was a bit concerning. So I will tell everybody on this call, if you have something you'd like to share with the planning board, the proper way to do it is to provide it to the planning board, not to individuals at their house. So having said that, it turns out that the next day, someone did send these exact same photos to the planning board. So we have them on the file. So there is a question that I have on one of the photos.
Okay.
Chris, can I just ask you, are you suggesting or asking a question of whether that individual was a representative from Palmer?
I don't know who it was. I have no idea who it was.
Well, since you don't know who it is, I can unequivocally tell you that individual was no representative of Peckham, Palmer, JSL, any individual under our umbrella.
Okay.
And I don't know what more to tell you than that.
I appreciate you saying that. I definitely want to support what Chris said on his behalf and on all of us, that's not really appropriate. And it's not just about the hour, but it's about process. We have an obligation to disclose information and not discuss information other than in meeting. So while we certainly appreciate receiving information, it needs to go to the planning department as a normal process or be revealed here when we call for public speak.
Right.
Which it did go, and that's why this material is going to be in here. But that's, in a way, in my eyes, that's a bit of harassment. So, I mean, we're not elected officials; we're appointed officials, and adjudicators. And coming to our home is not cool. I'm very sorry that you experienced that.
Yeah, and we are as well. But 2 points of communication through this whole thing outside of the meetings. And it's been Curtis and Jeff, and I should say we've also had site meetings with Cassie, but we've only submitted information through email and UPS.
That's the proper way to do it, and I appreciate.
Yeah, that's the full stop when it comes to our interaction with the city.
Well, let's move. Let's move forward. I think the message has been delivered, and talk about the picture you had a question with.
Okay, so I have a question with, I don't know, Curtis, if you'd like to bring it up. It's the
PDF, right, on my screen?
I'm still seeing, so we're done with the contours on the PDF. Really, I'm looking at the photos now. So I think the photo of there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I think 8. Yep. I'm looking at the third one down, Curtis. That's DJI0012.jpg. You can bring that up.
Can you see this photo now on your screens?
No,
not yet.
Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stop.
I could see your file. There you go. So this picture shows what looks like some sort of runoff from a stockpile of material, whether it's gravel or I don't know what it is, and it looks like it appears to be draining off to a I don't know if it's a berm. I don't know what's there that's collecting the stormwater, or if it is actually running off into that detention pond just beyond. Can you explain kind of what's going on there?
Yeah, there's water that drains out of the piles, and it's typically they don't wash on this site, so it's typically just rainwater. Mm-hmm. That basin used to function prior to the large basin that was installed in the RAP system. So there's a berm there. That's the white material you see, and in front of that is a curb, which is designed to direct water down that roadway towards the pond in the westerly direction. So there's probably just not enough flow right there for that to show it, or the water's either running by the concrete block, between the concrete block and the berm, or the curb.
Okay. So, and I have not visited your site, but is it safe to say that at this point, so is that what looks like a pond, or not really a pond, but a little ponded area of water beyond the berm in the woods? Is that still an active detention area?
It's not active. It only receives the water that rains on it. There's no discharge into it.
There is no discharge into it. Okay. Okay. And then there's another, just a quick, if I could just look at one more drawing.
I have one question. Oh, never mind.
Sure, go ahead.
With regard to that same location, Mr. Capel, was that one of the locations that you toured with the conservation agent?
Yes, it is. We walked this entire area.
Okay.
You did.
And I don't know if that comes through in that report, if that was one of the images that got embedded in the conservation agent's report or not, but I just wanted to ask if that one area was flagged previously. So I think these photos have been submitted to various people over time.
Cassie and her team walked that area with us.
Yeah. In particular, the photos that were submitted recently, were submitted in October and were being dealt with that way as well. So just for that information. But okay, thanks.
Yep, that's fair. So I think the only other one, let me just verify, is number 28, the 0028. I just have a quick question on that one.
Rather than share twice, I'm going to pull it up now and then
Yeah.
screen share it once it's open, and then you can tell me that that's right or not.
That's the one. So this also shows what looks like a construction area, or maybe it's just your site where you're picking up material, bringing it over to your plant. And I see there's a pretty substantial rainwater detention area as well, stormwater detention.
Yep.
Is that still an active stormwater detention area?
It is a detention area with no outlet. That's why it fluctuates in size. I'm sure you've got a series of pictures that different sizes year to year, season to season.
Okay. And I do see that you actually have shown that effectively in your contour map. And I believe it appears from looking at your contours that the land, I'll say to the right of that, the forested area appears to be at a higher grade. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So that stormwater just naturally seeps into the ground and infiltrates into the ground over time.
Correct.
Okay.
And one thing to note, we have moved the industrial process that you see going on. That's where we used to handle our wrap.
Mm-hmm.
Picture has to be fairly old.
Okay.
Because the mobile equipment, the screen, the generator that you see in that picture, all of that's relocated up to where the clear span building is. So we don't even have that industrial process vehicle movement back and forth.
Okay.
And that's all been removed from there.
So what's there now? Is it just restored, or is it grass, or is it just dirt?
It's an area that we could use to park equipment if we had to, but right now it's vacant. It's open space.
Okay. Mr. DeSilva, did you have access to these pictures? Is this the first time you're seeing these materials?
Yeah, these are the first. This is the first time I've seen these photos. But just as a note too, that whole area was included in the tour with Cassie's group.
Okay. So the Conservation Commission is aware of this. They're working through this. Have they made decisions yet, or is it still in process?
I can answer to that a little bit. I received correspondence from the Conservation Agent on 12/30/2020. The agent commented that the Conservation Commission did not find any issues with stormwater systems, runoff, or drainage on the site that would require further action by the applicant. I want to specifically note that the Conservation, I can't comment on the Conservation Commission's process, so I do not know whether this commentary is for the site in general or specifically for the purview of the site for which the planning board is currently reviewing, i.e. the silos and drag slab conveyor. But in either case, specifically in regards to this project, I reached out to the Conservation Agent, and the Conservation Agent provided a comment that the Conservation Commission has reviewed and finds that the project meets any applicable standards.
Okay, so I mean that's exactly what the Conservation Commission is that's their role, that's their jurisdiction. So I feel like if they have seen these pictures as well, they've reviewed the pictures, they've done a site walk, they've identified that there are no concerns. At this point, I think my concerns are addressed, and I'm comfortable.
Okay. Do we know that the Conservation Commission has received these images?
Yes, I guess I can build on what Curtis was explaining, and maybe there is one piece of information that has not totally come to the board, which is a memo from the conservation agent, which outlines the steps that were taken. And I am in a situation that I'm on two computers and I don't have sharing capability on this one with the video, but Curtis.
You mean the memo where the conservation agent goes through the timeline of different correspondences with a member of the public?
Do you have the ability to pull that up? Because what it does is it does two or three things, which is identifies that the matter was brought to the commission, and if I'm not mistaken, includes the imagery, the same imagery that we just looked at, and then confirms that the commission has reviewed this and found no
I have a 27-page report entitled "Violation Investigation Report," formatted as a memo from Cassie Traeger.
Yeah, could you pull that up for a moment? That's the one. I mean, I think there was a complaint, filed in October based on those images, and that has been under review for some time until it was brought. I don't know if this lists the date of the commission meetings. I think it does actually, but this is the document that I wanted to make sure the planning board knew was part of the public record.
Here is the commentary regarding the Conservation Commission meeting. And here is the commentary of the Conservation Commission.
Okay, and the determination based on inspection.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just reading through it. Based on the determination of stormwater management structures and locations, indicated the possible discharge points. It was agreed amongst the agent and commissioners in attendance of the 12/9/2020 site visit that no violations of the Wetlands Protection Act were occurring on site due to unmanaged stormwater runoff. So that's, I mean, that's good enough for me. I mean, this is their job. This is their charge. So if they've identified this, then I'm okay with this.
Yeah, and then just for belts and suspenders kind of things, Chris, if you scroll down a couple pages, there's the images, in particular the image that you flagged, Chris. So
look at that.
These were the same images that had been, I believe that the same images that we've been discussing. There was a note that they were submitted by the abutting property owner.
Yep.
And so I guess it doesn't include that one, but I know that they were submitted as a package.
Yeah, maybe if you scroll down, Curtis, there might be additional photos. I can't recall, but I mean, there's another several pages, so it's possible. Maybe not. Okay.
That certainly does assuage my concerns as well. I mean, I was considering.
Oh, there's that. Actually, if you scroll up, there's that basin, but you're saying that's no longer.
Yeah, it looks like this is the first basin you were inquiring after, and then 2 pages down, there's the second, much larger lake that you
can see the berm around both sides of it. The water level's depressed. Back when they did the wrap, maybe they should have filled this in back then, but it's a feature we inherited. But it is just what you see it is. You can see there's no overtopping. The vegetation is mature. It's not eroded.
Right.
It's a little catch basin at this point for what falls on it.
That's exactly it. And they even said that it's standing water with no inlet or outlet. So there is no indication that there is infiltration or inflow into this area. So that's fine. Okay. That's good information.
No need for a site visit?
I don't think so. I'm comfortable.
Okay. Mr. De Silva and team, was there anything else that you'd made modifications of since our last meeting?
Oh, we took your comments pretty literally, added the spot elevations, and put together the additional photos to just reinforce the area of the map that was put together wrong in the first place.
Okay, thank you. Does the planning board have any more questions that they want to bring up at this point? Nope. Not seeing anyone. In which case, I'm going to, we have a couple of things that came in from the public, but first I'm just going to see if there's anyone here that wants to speak from the public. And then after that, I'll read in some of the materials that we received. If there's anyone here that wants to speak, you can raise your hand so that we can see you. Jeff, do you remember what the codes are that Jesse so often *9, something like that?
Yep. If you're on a cell phone, *9 raises your hand and *6 unmutes, or vice versa. I apologize, I don't have that actually handy, or you can turn on your camera. There's only one other.
I'm not seeing anyone. Do you see anyone?
Yeah.
On my phone, unfortunately, I'm unable to see the list of.
No, there's nobody.
Right, I agree. I think the other two people are associated with the next application.
James went cameraless. Would you like me to read in the... Would you like me to read in the correspondence, or since he's the acting chair, he needs to do it?
No, I'm sure. I think you can do it. I think that's what he was going to do. So I think that makes sense.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah, you're back.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm having some microphone problems, and I apologize. So, yeah, if we could bring up the document that Curtis sent, I think it just came recently. There were some additional attachments that came on the 18th. And we'll start with the one that says anonymous complaint. Can you bring that up, please, Curtis?
Sure. I'm gonna bring this up in screen share. 1 second. The document entitled Anonymous Complaint Palmer Paving 119-2021.
That's the one.
Okay, great.
Okay. So I'll try to read this in here. It says there are 2 issues with Palmer Paving's application. Number 1, lots of irrelevant filler. Number 2, incomplete site plan. It says issue number 1, filler. After reading the special permit application for parcel 131-4, I noticed that there was a lot of filler. 63% of the application either had blank pages, copies of previous pages, or pages that are not relevant to the parcel. Number 131-4 application. Below you'll find a schedule. Green represents what appears to be pertinent to the application. Pages in red are irrelevant to the application. They go through to say there was a cover letter. I'll call out the things that are red here, because I think that's what the point they're trying to make is that it's irrelevant, that the instructions on how to apply for permit, the picture of Phillips Plumbing is not relevant, stormwater cover level for 131 and 14, blank pages, site map, blank, repeat. There's basically saying that it's sort of a malformed document here. And hopefully the public can see this from what I'm kind of skipping over a little bit. It says, given that over half of the document do not appear to be relevant for the special permit application for parcel 131-4, I ask that the applicant remove or either explain why these documents are included in the application. You have to understand that this fluff makes the application very confusing for the reader. They then go on to say issue number 2, the site plan does not seem to comply with the standards set forth in the Easthampton zoning ordinance 2.7.5.1. The plan does not conform with 12.7.5.1 scale regulations. The plan uses a 1 inch equals 100 feet scale. Nor does the site plan appear to address the following requirements in section 12.7.5.1 of the Easthampton zoning ordinance B, E, F, I. B is who is the controller? Where is the seal from the controller? Did the controller approve the spot elevation requested from the planning board in the first meeting? E is no dimensions are visible on the plan. F, where are the driveways? Photo number 1 from the file, site plan berm photolog.pdf does not seem to be visible from the site plan, 42 site plan 001. And I, where are the documents required by the SPGA? Before continuing to look at some of the other stuff we have, I'd like to take a moment to ask the applicant, have you seen this document?
No.
Okay. Are you able to respond to any of these now, or would you like some time to put together a response?
Well, a little behind the 8 ball, not having seen this until 30 seconds ago, but I would say that I don't know what. I'm not going to respond to what they think is pertinent or not pertinent. We provided history. There's no data in there to try to obfuscate what the information we provided. So I would probably not respond to that comment. Fluff is very subjective. I'm not really sure what that is and what I would say to you. We don't feel that way at all. There's some history in there about the site, and I think it's all relevant. We think we did ask for waivers from various requirements of the site plan because it was a very focused application, and we did that in concert with the department in the language that we used. The scale, there is a scale. The plan is dimensioned. I'm not sure. I guess we could go through these and get back to you, but I don't give a lot of merit to what I see here. The picture of Phillips Plumbing, not relevant, just taking one of those. The whole point was to show from Arthur that you can't really see the silos, or they're obscured. So if Phillips is what shows in the picture, that's what you see when you're there. Just scrolling through these, that's kind of where I am right now, but take a deeper dive into these. Not sure what the controller means or whose seal that I need to obtain. That doesn't mean much to me unless I'm just ignorant on that. where are the driveways? Everything is labeled. I'm not so sure what that means. I don't know where they got the application. Did they get a full copy of it if it was produced for them? We certainly didn't submit a document fraught with blank pages unless it was a page that separated an appendix, which is how we format a document. We put in a blank page between appendices. So there are some blank pages, but they're for the ease of the reader, and they can help find a document as they're trying to find something. So off the top of my head, that's kind of my reaction having just seen this.
Okay. I have to agree that it's very subjective, that issue of filler up top. Some of the issues are number 2 below. They're very specific things such as the regulations for scale and such. So I think that, those are something we might take a look at. We've peeked at that already, at what your plans are. Jeff, as a member of the planning department, can you tell me about your satisfaction with the plans received in terms of their formatting?
Yeah, and I'll defer to Curtis first, and then I'll follow up, because Curtis has done more of the review of this one.
I did the primary review and penned a memo to the planning board, specifically going over strict compliance and waivered compliance with the zoning ordinances of the city of Easthampton. My feeling on the matter is that as the project represents a post hoc permitting for an existing structure, a great deal of the permitting requirements that I would normally consider necessary for a new development are either relaxed or waived by request of the applicant in their original application. Next example, which I'll use just to illustrate for all parties, is the kind of the controller commentary. So generally for new site plans, we are obliged to receive a stamp from the surveyor and then the civil engineer associated with the project, civil engineer, landscape architect, or other site professional. In this particular case, there are multiple site plans associated with this project, including the original site plan for which this got a special permit, the additional one for the abutting parcel, parcel number 14, and then the site plan that we've largely been using, the elevations, which is unstamped. For a new application, I would consider, for example, in comparison, 102 Northampton, which the board reviewed for a special permit. The issue of not having a stamp was salient there, and the board brought it up as an issue and requested that the applicant get it stamped, which they did because they'd had an architect working on that one. In this particular case, since this is a post hoc permitting for a subsidiary part of a parcel that has already received a special permit that was duly surveyed and stamped, I provided commentary to the board that it's within the board's rights under Section 1279A and Section 1275R that the board can make such decisions as they see fit, whether or not the application is substantially complete to their standards and makes the greatest effort, the quote is a reasonable effort to conform with the city's ordinances.
Yeah,
it seems to me, I'm sorry, Jeff, but it seems to me that were we to accept or refuse either way, that in our findings, we probably best make note that we're complying or not complying with these specific waiver requests. Just throwing that out there. Jeff, you were going to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to, in the zoning ordinance itself, under the section that goes through the application requirements, it's clear that the special permit granting authority can waive, any of the requirements that the board feels are, unnecessary. And so I think that that's important just to know that you have the authority to waive, the stamped engineered plans or anything. I think it's important though, because you're going to get other applications and you might, it's a case by case situation. And I think what Curtis said it has some relevance, which is, this is really the permitting of those silos. So there's been a lot of other questions about the site in general and getting really kind of just a handle on what the site configuration is. So the board's within your jurisdiction to ask for more information or waive the requirements. And I think it's going to happen on a case by case basis. So, I think you just might get asked to waive a stamp plan on something different, in the future, and you might want to have it. So It's just that you do have discretion here.
All right, I'm going to want to go through some of the additional commentary we had. But, my feeling just in general here is that, obviously we're looking to make sure that the public is safe and that there's no flagrant violations. But I'm inclined to narrow in on the overall purpose of this just being the silos. Does the rest of the board have an opinion on that? Which is to say that, are you willing to accept these waivers for the non-stamp land, et cetera? Anyone?
Harry?
Yeah, I think we should accept the plan as presented.
I'm fine with that.
That's what I think.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Well, then, let's see what else we've got here. I think there was an email from Eric Burzens, and this was received, it looks like at 2:21 on January 19th. That was today, I think. It says, "Dear Planning Board members," and then it lists the Easthampton zoning ordinance 12.21 for emissions, saying emissions shall be completely and effectively confined within the building or so regulated as to prevent any nuisance hazard or other disturbance from being perceptible without the use of instruments at any lot line of the premises on which the use is located. And then it goes on to say, at minute 41 of the 1521 Easthampton Planning Board YouTube video, the topic of odor and emissions is discussed. It says Jason acknowledges that once exposed to the atmosphere, the hot material does create a noxious odor. In brief, he describes the manufacturing of the asphalt and states that most of the process is contained, closed process system. He goes on to say, however, that there is a stage in the process where the hot material is exposed to the atmosphere. He calls this process venting. As defined in the dictionary, venting is the outlet for gas, air, gas, or liquid. If I understand Jason correctly, this venting process exposes the hot paving material directly to the atmosphere 70 feet in the air. Because of the venting process, this plant should be subject to standards set forth by 10.21 in the Easthampton zoning ordinance. In my opinion, this process smells, especially when the plant is operating 24 hours a day. The emissions cause a nuisance. Question for Jason, he asks, and he listed as an A. Can you confine the venting process? I'm going to continue to read what he has here. He says, if Jason's answer is no, I have a question for the planning board. How will the process be regulated by the Easthampton government under the zoning ordinance 10.21, If the venting process cannot be confined, an undersetting of the process is needed. I'm not sure if he means understanding, but undersetting, he says, of the process is needing in order to implement local regulation. Some examples of what questions need to be asked are, what is the composition of the material? How hot is the material? How long is the venting process? What is the composition of the material being vented into the atmosphere? What technological process can be implemented to minimize smells? And then rather than venting at 70 feet, can you vent at ground level with a hose? I respectfully ask that the planning board address venting during the drafting of the special permit. Cheers, Eric Burzens, 30 Fort Hill Road. I'd like to ask the applicant if they have seen this letter before and if they have any commentary or would like some time to make response.
No, we have not seen this before. Can you scroll up on the email for a second? That's your code 1021. Emissions shall be completely and effectively confined within the building or so regulated as to prevent any nuisance, hazard, or other disturbance from being perceptible. So the state of Massachusetts regulates hot mix asphalt plants. And there's a source registration, which we have for this site, which was properly permitted. And it addresses emissions from hot mix asphalt plants. So I don't think that the township is trying to exert extend their by your zoning extend the administration and permitting of state applicable permits on this facility or anything like that. So I would say that we are appropriately permitted. We operate within the tenets of our permit. We report to the state of Massachusetts every year as we're supposed to. The constituents of hot mix are well known. They're in our permit. And I would say that we listened to neighbors who spoke at the last meeting, when specifically asked either by Curtis or Jeff whether they smelled anything, and the gentleman, I can't remember his name, said he'd been there for quite some time and did not experience nuisance conditions. So I think there was a comment from a board member that said, well, we're very glad to hear that, because lots of times people tell us that they're going to be a nuisance, and then we only find out later after it's built that maybe they are. This has been in place. These silos have been in place since 2012. We've got an 8-year history. We've got adjacent neighbors who've told this board in the last meeting that there's not a nuisance condition. We're regulated by the state. We maintain our permits with the state. And I would say we are operating appropriately and as corporate neighbors. I don't have an immediate reaction just having seen this.
The discussion to which you make reference took place at from 41:30 during the recording of the meeting last time to 44:30, and a member of the public is Attorney Chamberlain, who's on an abutting property, and his commentary was that he did not detect any odor from the site.
I'm looking at that in the minutes now and corroborate he said that. I do have to say that, I mean, this letter that we received is, however, a member of the public saying that they believe it's a nuisance. That's, something that the planning board listens to. It's why we asked for the public input. And that's something that is within our jurisdiction to be concerned about, is odor in this. I do think it's telling that some people aren't smelling it. Someone says they are. In the overall meeting, I got the sense from you and sort of in discussion that this is something that happens periodically. You open it up. As the stuff is sort of falling into the trucks or whatever it is, there's that period where it emits odor, but other than that, it's completely contained, and that you have to follow a requirement. I forget the agency who regulates your emissions. Can you remind me the name?
The state of Massachusetts Environmental Department. There's a Division of Air.
Division of Air. Okay. So, my take on this is that, that seems like a fairly slight time in which it's happening. You are in an industrial zone. For me, it's something I want to pay attention to, but I find it to be relatively minor. Does the board have any opinions on this?
I would just like to add, while the board is contemplating, that we're a seasonal business. We shut down depending on the year, end of November, certainly by the beginning of December. And then we're shuttered until mid-April, when the state of Massachusetts allows us to pave. So there's a good, whatever that is, 4.5 months where we're non-operational. Having said that, we offered last meeting to address any concerns. We offered to create a log of complaints to where we can correlate the perceptions or the reality of what the neighbor experienced with what we're doing on site. And we will commit to that one more time, that we certainly are not dismissive of complaints and comments, but it's a little hard to react to something in January when this application's been in for a while. The facility's been there since the 80s, and we don't have a long history of complaints. And if something is amiss or something is giving someone pause, we certainly will create a log and react to it. And we have no problem, looking internally at ourselves and seeing if there's something that we can improve. But right now, we do not, in our opinion, have a condition that warrants doing that. But certainly, we leave the offer open and we'll stand by that.
The issues that are raised in the letter in terms of extra steps and extra questions, for me, seem, to be quite frank about it, over the top, considering what I'm understanding is occurring. But I'd like to make sure that the board is on board with that. Again, I ask, there's no one here that sees any issue with this?
No, I'm comfortable.
Okay.
I think one other way to think about this, I just want to add this, I don't know if it'll be helpful, and I didn't mean to cut off member Sanders, but if we walked back in time and the applicant was proposing this facility, right? So that's what we're doing, is we're going back and we're permitting something that exists. If this was a proposal, the way the board has handled, I have limited experience, but walking the board through a project that has had odor and emission questions, the city does not have the technical expertise to handle odor, to understand if odor is nuisance. It will typically defer to a more expert in the field, and in this case, it's going to be Mass DEP. If the applicant was proposing this, the word or any other disturbance, or so regulated as to prevent the nuisance, the board would look to what permits at the state level would be required for this operation, and it's Mass DEP. So I think in this case, the fact that they're permitted through Mass DEP is important for the board to understand. If there are emissions that are causing significant odor issues, the first course of action would be Mass DEP to ensure that they're in compliance with their air pollution permit. The board would have limited ability to go out and do inspections and make findings on this, so they would rely on that state agency for that. If you were thinking about findings in support of this special permit, you could potentially make a finding that the emissions are, regulated, I think that's the word, to prevent the nuisance by having a permit through Mass DEP. And I think if there continue to be, issues in the future with an abutter, that the abutter went to Peckham and didn't feel like they responded, they could certainly bring it to the planning board, but the more appropriate agency is going to be Mass DEP. If there's something that's awry with their process, Mass DEP should be the ones to inspect it and make the determination. They have the monitoring requirements and things like that. So that would be the way. I would just encourage the board to imagine if this were being proposed, you would likely put a condition that it shall obtain, the necessary permit at the state level and then adhere to that. So that's just the other way to think about it. I just wanted to offer that. Hopefully it's helpful.
It's interesting as to whether it's a condition or a finding. I believe it to be mandatory for the operation of that business that you have that Mass DEP testing, right? I mean, whether we condition it or not, you require it. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely right.
So I think probably a finding, unless the board disagrees, is the appropriate place to note that, and the fact that we're waiving the seal. Okay. So those are the two pieces of information I have. Curtis, had you received anything else on that?
Let me see. No, the four total pieces of correspondence are those photos, the anonymous commentary, the email from Eric, and the commentary from the Conservation Commission. I have a raised hand from Jeff Zerwin right now.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Yo, what up? Yo, it's Eric Burzens.
Eric?
I'm waving the seal when I build my motocross track.
Eric, just 1 second, please. Please tell us your address.
Fort Hill Road.
Thank you.
I'm waving the seal when I submit my plans, all right? No seal.
Okay, are you referring to some other project that's not? I don't know what we're.
No, I'm just saying that the new standard in town is no seal.
I don't think that's really the case. As Jeff brought up in this particular case, Mr. Burzens, what's happened is that this was an already permitted project. We're focusing on.
Can you share the previous permit? We haven't even talked about that. I mean, are there any photos, plans, documents you guys have neglected to show the previous plan?
You mean sorry, this is Curtis Weeman, the assistant planner. You mean the plans as originally approved for the site from, Jeff, what's the original date?
85.
Okay. Yeah, so I can they're not currently available because the subject of the special permit is just the silos. I can upload those to the website tomorrow. I can scan them out of our file here.
All right. Well, you guys, all of a sudden, you guys are accusing me of having to submit an entire site plan. Okay. Why don't they have to submit an entire site plan? Jeff Bagg went line through line, okay, and told me that, I had issues. Why isn't the same standard upholded?
Okay, this is really about, we're not in discussion about another plan right now. I get that you're frustrated. I totally do. And I certainly don't think we've neglected to look at the other site plan. We have a process that we follow. If you have an issue, I think a complaint with the process with the planning department, I would take it up with the mayor on your project.
The mayor? Are you kidding me? That's the wrong thing to say right now.
So if you have anything more you want to say about this project, I'd love to hear it.
You guys are unbelievable. You know that. Take a look. You guys are screwing over the taxpayers, the citizens of Easthampton here. Remember,
can I ask you about the smell?
Yeah, the smell freaking stinks. It fills the entire valley. Okay, you can't be ignorant about this. Okay, it affects everyone. You guys are dismissing a zoning ordinance, okay, as to appease a billion-dollar company. Okay?
I assure you that I don't even know these people, and these accusations are unfounded and frankly upsetting.
I'm out of here.
Anything? All right. Thank you very much. Anyone else that wants to speak? Okay. All right. So I think that we're at a point now where I kind of want to get a straw poll from the board about how they feel. We're looking at, if we're going to approve, it looks like we've got a waiver for the seal, as was noted, that needs to be, I think that's just in findings that the board finds that it accepts the waiver. And also a finding that says that the appropriate authority for emissions is the Mass DEP. I don't think we have any other conditions or findings with relation to the runoff. Did you want to add something, Chris, about the fact that conservation is approving it as a condition?
You're asking me?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it makes sense in whatever findings we state that the Conservation Commission has gone to a site visit at this site. They've received the same photographs that we've received. They've identified no negative findings. They've identified that the site is not violating any stormwater impacts or any regulations or laws. So I'm comfortable if we make a statement that we've resolved that issue.
Okay.
To our satisfaction.
Is there anything else that anyone wants to add as a finding or condition on this, on the board? If not, then my intention is to read through section 12.79 now to see that it's in compliance, read that it's in compliance, and then take a vote. Everyone with me on that?
Yep.
Okay. 12.79. In the past, we've read the entire zoning and then whether it conforms. We have a lot to read. In this case, I only have 12.79, so I will read the zoning so that it makes sense. Conforms with the provisions of the ordinances of the City of Easthampton, the general laws of Massachusetts, and all applicable rules and regulations of state and federal agencies. I believe it does, but we do need to mention the fact that we are waivering the section about the seal in there. B, protection of city amenities and abutting properties through the minimization of any detrimental or offensive uses or destruction of unique or important natural resources, scenic or historic features on the site. I believe it does comply. And again, here and when we're talking about wetlands, a notion of the note rather of the finding that the Conservation Commission is also going to be approving that. C, minimization of traffic and safety impacts on the proposed development on adjacent highways or roads and maximizes the convenience and safety of vehicular and pedestrian movement within the site. I believe it does. There's no issues there. D, adequacy of the methods of disposal of sewage and refuse and the drainage of surface and subsurface water. Again, that's being reviewed. There's another authority that's looking at that, and I think that our finding shows that that's taken care of. Adequate means of protecting wetlands, watersheds, aquifers, and well areas. Same thing. Fits. F, mitigation of adverse impacts on the city's resources, including the effect on the city's water supply and distribution system, sewage collection and treatment systems, fire protection and streets. No issues there. G, provisions for the off-street loading and unloading of vehicles incidental to the normal operation of the establishment, parking, lighting, and internal traffic control. We talked about this at the prior meeting with regard to lighting and the lighting that's on the device and that nothing was going to go out. into the wetlands with regard to lighting. We also talked a little bit about traffic and coming in. I believe it's compliant. H, applicant's efforts to integrate the development into the existing landscape through design features such as vegetative buffers and retention of open space or agricultural land. Complies. I, the minimization of area over which existing vegetation is to be removed or tree removal is required. Special attention is to be given to the planting of replacement trees. That's an issue here. J, the consistency of the development with respect to setback area, placement of parking, architectural style, and landscape of the surrounding buildings and development. Again, not an issue here. K, the adequacy of the measures to prevent pollution of surface or groundwater, to minimize erosion and sedimentation, and to minimize changes in groundwater levels, increase runoff, and potential for flooding. Again, Conservation Commission with regard to the flooding and otherwise complies. L, adequacy of the methods to ensure that the use will not constitute a nuisance by reason of unacceptable level of air or water pollution, excessive noise, or visually flagrant structures and accessories. It does. Mass DEP regulates the emissions. I will say that one of the items we need to say in our findings is that we are accepting the waiver of the height. I think that initially when this plan came before us, one of the issues is that it was above its height limits, and that we have no issue with that. Anything I missed, Jeff or Curtis?
So, okay, so I just want to walk back to that special height. So this is a special permit. You're not waiving the height. The special permit is just straight up for the height of this additional structure. So this is a special permit per section 6.87 to exceed the maximum height of 30 feet / 2 stories established in table 6-2, table of height and bulk regulations. It's based on the standards that you just read. The board is determining that special permit is being granted here.
Yeah. So we'll take a motion then.
One other thing.
I'm
very sorry.
Yeah.
So it's the contention of the planning department and in correspondence with the applicant that this project represents a simultaneous site plan review and special permit review. The special permit review is for exceeding the maximum height. The site plan is for an accessory structure on an industrial property. So they're proposing they're post hoc proposing an industrial structure on an industrial property that requires a site plan review, and the special permit is for the height of the structures. The criteria for special permit granting and the mandatory submittals are identical to the special permit, except that the special permit includes 2 additional ones. In reading the special permit criteria that the board contends that they meet, the board has also satisfied the conditions necessary for the applicant to meet in order to receive site plan approval. So, but when you're approving them, please note that you're approving site plan review for accessory structures, special permit for structure height of those industrial structures.
Got it. Let me just see if I have that as well. Do you want me to read those? Is that what you want, or do you just want us to accept it?
My statement as staff right now is that my contention is that you've read them. They're literally word for word identical.
And I see them here, and I love the fact that we don't have to duplicate that. And I see them here at 12.95 site plan approval criteria, and they are A through J. And so if we accept the others, we accept those as well. Anything the board wants to add? Okay, I need a motion to approve with the aforementioned findings.
Give me 1 second.
Okay.
I motion that we approve Palmer Paving Corporation applying for a site plan review and special permit for accessory structure height with the amendments discussed.
Second motion.
I've got a second. All right. All in favor? Now I'm having trouble seeing you here, so I'm just going to go by memory. Harry?
Aye.
All right. Chris?
Aye.
Austin?
Aye.
And we don't have Jesse, so I am an aye, and that's all 4 of us. Okay. Thank you very much. Is there anything that, any questions you have about the process that you want to ask Curtis before we move on to our next item?
So I'll have to draft a decision and bring it. In this case, I would bring it to you, James, to say this is what I'm signing off on, and then I'll correspond with you subsequent to that whether you want to come in and sign it, and then I will, Jason and Kevin, I'll provide y'all with a copy of that decision, and I'll mail out the abutters notice thereafter, which will start the clock for the appeal period, and then that'll be it.
Okay. Are you guys
We
good?
appreciate the opportunity to be in front of the board. And again, we stand by our commitment that if there's any question, comments, anybody wants to see the place, just have Curtis shoot us an email, and we'll make it happen. And we'll restate our commitment to the neighbors. And if anybody has any concerns, they have my phone number. They can call.
All right. Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Bye-bye.
You take care, gentlemen.
All right. The next item on our agenda is our second public hearing of the evening. It's a High Five Inc. seeking a special permit under Section 10.10 and 12.9 to operate a cannabis cultivator, cannabis product manufacturer at 19 Wamelco Way. This meeting was continued from the last meeting. I believe the individual was on the airplane or in an airplane at a time. Is anyone here to speak about this tonight?
Yes, I am.
Hello. Name and relation to the project?
Kevin Perry, we're the construction manager for the project for High Five Inc.
Great. Why don't you tell us about it?
So High Five is going in an existing building. The building footprint right now is roughly about 9,000, 10,000 square feet. We're increasing that to around 16,000 through the use of mezzanines on the existing building. And we are proposing an addition of roughly 4,000 square feet to go in what's currently the parking area. This will be a cultivation and manufacturing facility for cannabis. It currently has a host agreement with the city, provisional license through the CCC, and is in the process of being funded. We ran this through the police department. You can see there's the letter from Chief Alberti. We spoke to Captain Constantine. We have his approval based on the plans and life safety plans that were submitted to him for review. We also had the pre-meeting where we spoke to the conservation agent. They are requiring a review for the fence that we're looking to put in. But other than that, it's in compliance with any zoning regs that we're aware of at this time. So I'm not sure if you have any specific questions about the operation. I'd be happy to answer them for you. I submitted both the site plan, first and second floor plans for your review as part of the package.
Well, we have a ton of questions.
And I can pull it up. It's just taking my computer a sweet amount of time. So
I'm sure members of the board will have lots of questions as well as I. I'll take a stab at a couple of them, and I'm sure others will come in. Let's start with some of the basic stuff. What are your hours of operation going to be?
So currently, those have not been set in stone. I'll just pull it up here. Because this is cultivation, essentially it's a 24-hour facility. The previous application that was here, I just want to be clear that I know there was a special permit that was approved previously. That had a retail portion to it, the dispensary. We've removed that, and this would be cultivation and manufacturing only. So the exact shifts where the heavy staff is there, I don't have the exact times. It would more than likely be around 7 a.m. until 8 p.m., but there will be 24-hour staff at the facility.
So around the clock, someone's going to be there. What is the maximum number of staff and numbers at at particular times? Is it 3 shifts?
Well, the maximum will be during the day shift. We anticipate around 20 employees through the day shift. And we currently have around 37 parking spaces that'll be left after the addition. 3 spaces will be for visitors, and 2 handicap parking are what we anticipate there.
Okay. So I want to make sure I heard correctly. Did you say 20? Was that the number or did I just make that up?
Correct. Yeah.
20. Okay. And that's sort of most at one time?
That would be the maximum. Yeah, that would be a day shift where you have admin staff there, along with cultivation staff, packaging staff, things like that, kitchen staff. That's our anticipated maximum. It's going to drop off through, say, after 4 p.m. when admin staff go home, and over the night it'd be down to a minimum. Now, I wouldn't want to commit that there will always be someone there overnight, but that is certainly the plan. You have to make sure that it's climate controlled. There's no issues with that. It also increases security. So more than likely there will be staff there around the clock.
Okay. If any of the board members have raised hands, I can't hear it, so you can jump in. But I'm going to lead us sort of windingly towards security here. You talked about parking and people who are going to be there, and you said there's no retail component. How's the product getting in and getting out?
Well, so the product comes in the form of a seed. So because it's the cultivation, there's really no product coming in. It's a package of seeds, and then once those seeds are established, more than likely it's going to be through a cloning process. So those seeds, for the most part, will come in almost one time. After that, you have referred to as a mother plant that they'll continue to grow new plants off of. To leave, the packaging will be through an area you can see. If you look at the site plan, there'll be a fenced-in area. So we currently have a loading dock.
I think now would be a good time to bring that up if we could. I think Curtis is on it. And maybe you can kind of walk us through it with Curtis's help here.
Sure.
Just tell him what you want him to do.
Can you all see it right now?
Yep.
Great.
Yeah, so you'll see in that in plan view, the top left corner, it says 8-foot high chain link fence. That will be our primary receiving area. So essentially, this isn't coming in and out of large, vehicles, things like that, tractor trailers. You're moving minimal poundage that chances are going to be loading into something like a Sprinter van. So they'll go into the chain link area. That area is secure, acts as somewhat of a sally port, and the product is loaded from there. And then it heads out through GPS tracked vehicles.
I'm trying to find that sally port. My eyes aren't that good, and it's a little small on my phone. Curtis, are you able to sort of move your mouse around that? Are you able to see where that sally port is that he's referring to, where the truck will dock and undock?
So my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, that's going to be this pad here, and the truck pulls into this 12-foot wide area here. Is that accurate?
No, that's actually the dumpster. It's an enclosed dumpster. So actually where you see the one where it says one-story addition, just to the left, it's called out as...
this here?
Yes. Yep. Right there.
Okay.
So that's an 8-foot high chain link fence.
Yep.
That gets secured.
So is there a gate for the fence? It opens,
Yep.
Then the truck comes in, and I see there's kind of like a little stairway down there, so it doesn't really dock. It just sort of stops early, and then you walk stuff down into it?
Correct. I mean, you're not going into a large truck. So we do have a loading dock there, but it wouldn't go through that. This isn't coming out in a giant box truck or something. You're talking about moving product at one time that may fit in, 3 or 4 small boxes. It's high value product, but not large.
Okay, that's good to know. About how many times a day do you think these deliveries are leaving?
This would be maybe twice a week.
Twice a week. Okay. What security is going along in this building and with your product?
Well, the security plan was reviewed by the chief. I mean, and like I said, his letter of approval was attached. Essentially, every inch of this facility, literally, other than the restrooms, is covered by cameras. The police department has access to those. We've offered interior access. They've only requested exterior access to the cameras, so they'll be able to pull those up 24/7. We store that footage for 90 days. All doors, interior and exterior, have card access, and there is 24-hour site lighting on there. As far as any type of, formal security guards, that's not required by the CCC, the police chief. So that's not something we would have. The vehicles themselves that make the moves are controlled by the CCC, and have GPS tracking, and you have protocols to check in every 30 minutes, things like that.
Okay. I see that there was a security plan submitted. I've gone through those and read them. Does the board have any questions about security specifically? I found the materials provided in the Easthampton Police Department's approval exhibit D satisfactory. I may have just a few questions to give to the public, but does anyone here have anything specific there that stood out to them that they want to ask about security?
Chris, I just have a quick question. So on the abutting rail trail, you show a post and rail fence So that's basically, you're still going to be able to see through that fence. So it's not like that's going to be a, it's not like it's going to be a stockade fence or something that someone could get behind and have no one see them from the rail trail, and then they could potentially cause a security threat, right? It's just a post and rail, similar to what's already out there. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, that was a request. I can't remember who it was, but in one of our sort of early on meetings, it came up. I can't recall if it was conservation or something that Curtis has suggested, but that was a request by the town, so we added that post and rail. It'll be matched with the other ones on the bike path. But there are no windows or anything on that side. But yes, to answer your question, there's nowhere that anybody could hide or anything like that. The only fences that you will not be able to see through are also done by request, which are the ones that are going to hide the mechanical equipment, the condenser pad. If you're looking at this in plan view, plan right, that condenser pad will be hidden on two sides by a privacy fence.
Okay. That's the only security question I had. Thank you.
All right. When we did the last special permit on this particular building, as Chris just alluded to, we noted that that fence was just a, I don't know what you want to call that, post and beam. But it seemed that that bike path was very close to the rear of the building. Can you remind us what windows, what access there is from the rear of that building?
Nothing.
No windows, no access at all.
No.
Is there a side door on what is to the left of the map we're looking at currently?
Yeah, that's the main entrance. So that is the only entrance. So again, in plan view, if we're talking about this, the sort of southern side, if you will, or lower portion, the right side, as well as the sort of the north side in plan view, none of those have any entrances or exits at this time. Our main entrance is on the left side that faces Wamelco Way.
Does that rear area by the bike path have bike path facing cameras?
Yes, every inch of the, well, we only will view our property, but every inch of the building, interior, exterior, all sides, is covered by CCTV. We went through that exercise with the police department. They actually asked for 3 or 4 tweaks to them, cameras added here and moved in this location. So we made those changes and subsequently received their approval.
So to just restate, probably for the third time here, what you just said, there is and or are cameras on the backside, and would someone step off that bike path, maybe over the fence, the moment they're on their property, you'd be able to witness that?
Yes, every inch of our property will be covered in cameras. Yep.
Okay. All right. So let me ask now about that parking we talked about just a few moments ago. I think you said 37 spaces, 3 is visitor, 2 is handicap. Jeff, because I'm on my phone here, it's messing with some of the notes that I had access to on my laptop, which is on the fritz. Can you tell me, or Curtis, I'm sorry, I'm so used to saying Jeff. Can you tell me what our standard is, required number of spaces?
Sure. So the mandatory number of spaces is established in the zoning ordinance, and it normally is 1 space per 150 square feet of floor area per 10.1. But the board also has the ability to waive that explicit requirement if they believe that parking on site is sufficient.
What would that the requirement be in terms of number at that? Right.
At that level, it would be. I did the math at one point. I think it was somewhere in the.
It's around 135 roughly.
135 spaces based on the amount of space.
Very excessive.
So this is a waiver for the number of parking spaces. Okay, that's something we need to consider and we need to discuss. And I'll just state right off that the fact that there is no retail component here, you'll have 37 spots for at a max at one time 20 employees plus the possibility of a twice a week delivery. That seems to be in line. But we have to think overall of safety, future use, etc. Does the board have any comment on the requested waiver for the smaller number of parking spaces? Anyone here have an opinion? Okay. All right. I'm guessing then that just from that little straw poll that that's going to be all right. I see that you did a community host agreement. Where are you with your licensing with the state in the CCC?
We currently have a provisional license.
Okay. What is your opening plan? When do you think you, if we were to approve, when do you think you'd open up?
Well, that's a tricky question because there's a funding piece. So essentially, the funding rounds, there's only so much I can disclose, but it could be a several-month process for the funding for this. Once that's obtained, you have about 60 to 90 days for design development, and then construction would start shortly thereafter. My hopes and reality would be this would be a summer construction project.
So you're saying you'd start work in the summer and then open sometime, fall, winter?
No. This is about at least a 10-month build out.
10 month. Okay, so we're a ways off. All right. And then in terms of opening plan, there is no public component to this. There's no retail component, so it's not like we have to worry about lines or anything of that type.
There are 0 visitors here.
Okay.
I would say, essentially the rare visitor here or there could happen, but the site is highly controlled and visitors are, shall we say, discouraged. So unless you're there for a specific meeting, this is not open to the public in any means.
Signage says you intend to install 1 logo sign on the existing building. There's nothing else?
Not at this time. Any signage would be in compliance. We're not looking for any type of variance. We read the regs. We feel our signage can easily be accommodated within the current regulations.
Okay. If you're in compliance, that's perfect. Odor. You talked a little bit about your carbon filtration system. Can you just tell us about it? Recap it?
Sure. So the growing process now, excuse my ignorance somewhat, I've gotten a crash course in the last 6-8 months here on cannabis cultivation, but I'm still not an expert on the plant side. But as far as the odor control, the actual plants essentially live in a closed environment. So we have around a 10,000 square foot canopy of growing. That space does not receive any exterior air. So the odor really comes from your processing of it, where you're actually taking the plant and turning it into oils. That process will happen on a very limited basis. We expect it to happen maybe 2 or 3 days a week. We will be using a carbon filtration system, which takes out the majority of the odors, but we also plan to vent that through the roof structure as opposed to have it through the sidewall. So it's really impossible to say that there will be 0 odor. However, I can tell you from the other cultivation facilities, we will be producing far less in a much less impacted zone. I think, areas behind Eastworks and things like that are much more sensitive due to the breweries and traffic and things like that. We're fairly isolated other than the bike path, and we're going to make every effort to vent that in an area where the odors do not, as long as the wind's cooperating, they will not go anywhere near the bike path.
What kind of carbon filtration system are you using that you're venting off the top?
The exact model numbers and things have not been specified. Essentially what happens is you vent, you have overhead vents for the extraction process, and those run through carbon filters. Similarly, we use, for example, when we do work in hospitals, things like that, we run them through a 2-inch carbon filter and before the air goes to the outside, and that takes care of the majority of odors. So as far as a specific pleated filter number, I don't have that at this time. We're not at that design phase, but it will go through at least a 2-inch carbon filter.
It's always a difficult thing here. You don't want to jump the gun too much, but we do require certain standards, and odor is certainly one we've come against again and again in these types of things on this board. That's one of the things we're looking for you to provide a little bit more detail on as to which specific devices you do intend to use, and maybe kind of show us
I think
was
that's
vented
very
on a map
premature.
in the
I mean,
building.
without having a complete mechanical system designed, it is nearly impossible. It would be fictitious to say I'm providing XYZ filter when the manufacturer has yet to be selected for the processing equipment, which will determine ductwork size and things like that. I mean, we did have the conversation with the Board of Health. I believe Curtis was on that call. She had said that to date, there have been no complaints about INSA. And, you know, not to compare one to the other, but I think that's a much more high impact zone. I know I'm on the bike path. I take my daughter there almost every weekend, and I can smell it when I get near it, and I can all the way down it. You can smell it depending which way the wind blows. I think we're in a much less sensitive zone. And I think the folks, you know.
Is there a reason you don't have that done yet? I mean, you're saying it's premature to have that. Is there a reason you're coming before us before that's been laid out and created?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, putting me in somewhat of a difficult position because there's certain things that just due to their financial planning, it's really not my place to disclose. But when you're going out for a financial offering, I can tell you that it's a very important piece of that offering to investors is having your special permit in place and knowing that this is actually a feasible project in the eyes of the town. However, you're not going to go drop $200,000 in mechanical design until we know we have this special permit and we know we have the funding in place. So there's steps along the road. This is one of the earlier ones. We certainly cannot literally spend $200,000 on mechanical design if we do not have a special permit in hand and have the funding in place.
Okay, I'm hearing what you're saying. It's a difficult thing because we have a responsibility to require a certain standard, a certain level, and all of our projects that have come before us have been able to say this is what we're going to do. And what I'm hearing you say, and I respect this, is that we're putting this together. You know, this is how our business plan works. We need to find the funding. This is where we are in the step. But what that means to me is that based on your funding, you may choose lesser, odor mitigation methodologies. That's a cause that causes me some hesitation. I hope you understand my position in that is that, my expectation is to be able to provide assurances to the public that you're going to have an expert system. Without seeing that expert system, it's a bit problematic. Let's move on and talk about something else for now. We'll come back to that. Let's talk about energy use in the building. Can you tell me about the type of grow lights and energy consumption you plan on using?
Well, the energy consumption is restricted by the CCC. So we will be, obviously, they won't allow us to open unless we are conforming to their energy requirements. The grow lights will be a mix of more than likely metal halide and LED in order to accomplish that. You cannot go all metal halides. And meet the CCC's requirements. So at this point, again, what I can tell you is it'll certainly be in compliance with CCC guidelines. As far as a lighting count mixture between LED and halides, that information I do not have yet because, again, it's just the design is not completed 100%.
Okay. Does the board have any questions about energy use or odor or signage? Okay, not seeing anyone. So let's talk about your trash removal. I saw that area that we pointed out earlier, which is where the trash compactor is. That's within the fence, right?
That is a separate fenced-in area that will be covered with a privacy fence that will be served directly out of what is essentially our loading dock area. So the trash doesn't come outside. It will be filled from interior into a trash compactor.
What materials might get
the plans again?
So go ahead.
Sorry, let me know if you want me to bring up the plans again. My bad, that shouldn't affect you.
If anyone needs it, that's fine. I'm good with that because we already saw that. But what materials might get tossed?
That is primarily just your office waste, packaging materials, things like that. There is nothing related to the cannabis plant. All of that has to be disposed of in a separate manner. That goes into a quarantine area, is crushed and shredded, and then taken off site through a waste manifest and disposed. So the dumpster is for general debris, your regular office type debris, anything related to the manufacturing. So it's bags of soil, things like that.
Okay. All right, let's talk about lighting. What lighting are you adding to the building?
The building is currently lit on nearly all sides. We do plan to improve it slightly. just to ensure that it is in compliance with what the police department is looking for, as well as making sure that our CCTV system functions properly. We're also looking to add, to pull it up here, I believe it is 3 exterior light poles to service the parking lot.
Okay, can we pull up the plan so we can look at those, Curtis? I'm not quite sure which design that's on.
1 second.
Thank you. Are those? Do you know that those will be downward-facing lights, or have any concept of the lumens that they produce?
They will be down-facing lights with shades on them that we will control to ensure that they go into our parking area only. It is anticipated that they will just run along the outer, excuse me here, I'm just trying to pull up the plan, along the property line facing what is DOS concrete service. Those are the only spots we can't service off of the existing building lighting. Everything else will be off of the wall packs that are there or improved that'll be mounted to the building.
Okay. We don't have a light plan.
No, and I don't see the poles. I don't know where the new poles are on this site plan.
Can you help us with that?
Sure.
I'm not seeing it either.
Yeah, I'm just trying to grab my other plan so I can move it around.
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize. It looks like you didn't label. They are going to go. There are 2 bushes that are up on the property line. You'll see where it says DOS concrete service. Then there's a contour line labeled 82. There's supposed to be one between those and one on the corner where it says edge of pavement on the far right-hand corner.
Okay. I definitely think that's something we'd want to see. So that's a modification we'll be looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a light plan will be important too, to see the lumens. Yeah.
So my memory of this when we looked at it before was that it was largely paved inside. Is that correct?
It
all bituminous surface in there. So so go ahead.
It's not the greatest condition, but the plan is it will be left for now until budget allows. They may top it, but it is all paved as is.
Right. I do recall the paving was in really rough shape. In the previous application, they were proposing to pave it. So if you're not proposing to pave it this time, are you planning to restripe it for all these spots, or are these spots accurately?
No, we will restripe it over the existing pavement.
Okay. So you're not planning to make any enhancements to the paving situation. Do you have any idea about how, well, if it's already paved and it's pre-existing, I'm guessing that runoff isn't our biggest concern here. Chris, what do you think on that?
Well, so they are increasing. Well, I should ask, are you increasing your impervious area with the new trash area and the new area where you're going to be loading and unloading?
No, we're actually shrinking it because the addition, well, the overall impervious area is remaining the same, but the paved area will shrink because where the one-story addition is, that 4,000 square feet is currently paved as well. But we are not increasing the impervious area whatsoever in terms of paving.
Yeah, I mean, the one-story addition is still impervious unless it's soaking up water, which you probably don't want that to happen. But I think that, honestly, well, are there any improvements to the drainage system? To any of the catch basins or any of the stormwater collection systems?
Everything was leaving as is.
Okay.
All right. So you've got this new addition coming in, and what's the purpose of that? Is that mostly for office space and the growing's happening in the other building, or can you give us a little rundown of the building use?
Sure. So, yeah, Curtis pulled that up there. So that new addition will accommodate drying room, trimming room, men's and women's locker rooms for the grow staff, as well as sort of the shipping and receiving area, which will incorporate a storage area and quarantine/shredding for, like I said, if you have stems and stalks, things like that, parts of the plants that are being disposed of, they go into the quarantine area, are shredded, and then removed by a waste manifest.
Okay. Is there a kitchen?
There will be a commercial kitchen. It's not in the addition. It is on the first floor near where you walk in.
Is that something that requires some approval from the health inspector, Jeff? That's we're before that process, correct?
Yeah, I would say,
or Curtis.
And Curtis, yeah, I would say slightly before that part, because they would acquire the special permit, just knowing that that kind of kitchen facility might get inspected by the health department. It will also get inspected by fire department and.
Sorry, I keep saying Jeff, Curtis.
It's okay. I presume the Cannabis Control Commission too.
I was going to say that may actually be a Jeff salient question because he knows how the Easthampton permitting process works better than I do.
Please go for it.
No, I was going to say. No, I'm all set. I was saying that I think Jeff's summary is accurate. I think that the only circumstance in which the Board of Health permit would go first is where it's a primary use, where the Board of Health permit is like a make or break. So if it would be a restaurant writ large, you may start dialogue with the Board of Health ahead of time. And as Kevin said, the Board of Health was part of the pre-permitting meeting for this particular property in the first place. So my understanding from dialogue with parties there is that they're going to be going forward to dialogue with the Board of Health after us.
Okay. You see, this diagram right here, this is exactly where I'm kind of wishing that I could see like how the venting in odor mitigation system was laid into it. I'm going to have to balance whether or not that's something I feel is required.
We did speak with the Board of Health. I mean, her stance on this, because we reviewed this, we had somewhat of a lengthy conversation about odor mitigation. And at the bottom, at the end of the day, I mean, her stance was, look, you need to ensure that there's no odor there. And if you do not, we're going to cite you, stop you, and you're going to revise your system until there is, till the issue is resolved. I mean, and that's how the caveat came up. She says, well, I said, have you had an issue with the existing one? She said, no, we have yet to have an odor complaint about any cultivation or dispensary in town. So, well, that gives us a pretty good baseline, because I feel like we will be far less intrusive than some of the existing ones, both in terms of location, but in terms of the amount that we're processing is far less.
Your highway business in this location, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of zoning, right?
I believe they're actually industrial.
This is industrial. Okay, that's even better than I thought.
I guess one question for members Arvis and the applicant, we had one other project with an element of cultivation, and I think that they may have had a similar response, that they didn't have everything worked out. But one of the things that it was the direction in which the ventilation would exhaust out of the building. And because that one, in that case, it discharged towards a little bit more of a sensitive abutting property. And so, have you had any discussion with anyone who would be able to tell you if the ventilation could be oriented to exhaust the building towards the parking lot and away from the rail trail? I think that I don't know if that's.
Well, our feedback on this so far from all of our consultants is by far our best route, being that it's a two-story building, is to vent through the roof. So, I mean, that's what we have put in the application, that any venting will go through the roof. As far as getting much more specific than that, it's very difficult, because there's limits to the lengths of runs that we can have on our ductwork, and we're fairly locked into that location with this design, as in terms of the kitchen and the processing rooms. So, what we can promise is that it will go up 2 stories up and be vented through the roof. Much beyond that, it would really be a stretch to promise that you can try to vent it onto the parking lot side.
It's just that I don't know. Like, in my head, I can't. I'm finding it difficult to measure whether putting it on the roof is better or worse. If the wind's prevailing in one direction, it comes over toward Route 10 and toward the the dance studio or whatever's over there. In the other direction, it could go over the bike path. And it's one of these things where I know these systems work hard to mitigate all odors. They don't catch everything. They are imperfect. And you mentioned that it's more than just the growing too. There's a component of emissions that occurs when you're making the product, whatever occurs in the kitchen perhaps.
It's only in the making. So maybe I wasn't clear. The grow rooms are enclosed. They're self-contained. There's no venting from the grow room. So when you smell that is through the processing of the product.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you're processing the product?
At the current time, and this is still subject to change, but it would be through a CO2 extraction. That's the most likely candidate for extraction. We spoke to the fire department about different options. I mean, as long as we're code compliant, we plan on determining all of the details down the road, but I would say there's 90% chance it's a CO2 extraction system.
Okay. I've gone through my list of questions. At this point, I think what I really want to see is where those lights are going to be. I'm hoping you can kind of give us a plan, come back next time and give us a plan of where the poles are going to be that shows them on the map. You don't have any tree removal or any bushes or any changes in that expectation other than the fence. Is that correct?
That's correct. There's very minimal site work here.
Okay. No plantings. No new plantings.
No.
And you're not. Go ahead, Chris, if you had more.
Well, the only thing I'd like to see is, there is an addition, and my concern is I'm not sure. It may not be a big deal, but when you look at the stormwater system, you've got some catch basins with what looks like 6-inch, maybe it's 8-inch. 6-inch PVC piping between the catch basins. A 6-inch PVC piping is not a lot. I would think maybe if we can get the city engineer's opinion on if a stormwater management, any stormwater management is required because of this addition, and if there is any sort of determination of the stormwater after the addition is done versus current stormwater, to make sure that the stormwater stays on site as much as possible. Although, actually, now that I'm looking at it, the catch basins all go off site anyway, so the stormwater currently is leaving the site.
Yeah, there's nothing there.
Current iteration. So I guess, I don't know, Jeff or Curtis, if they're proposing an addition, does that require them to manage the stormwater on site that offsets that addition?
My interpretation of the stormwater ordinance, and I defer to Jeff on this matter, is that it is the change in impervious cover that triggers review of the stormwater on site. And I at least agree with Kevin's interpretation that this represents either a net loss of impervious surface, right? Yeah, net loss of it at least is no change, if not a net loss. And I don't want to comment on that because I don't fully understand it, but I can say that what is there right now constitutes impervious surface on which a new impervious surface, i.e. a structure, is going.
Right. And even though the pavement is in very rough shape, it still is by definition impervious.
Right.
So this would be a new impervious structure over an impervious. Right, so it probably is not an issue then. I might want to just get a quick check on that from the city engineer, but I tend to agree. I think it's probably not a big deal.
Okay. You indicated that you're putting a single sign up. I would love on that map that you're going to give us that shows the poles, if maybe you could just indicate where you think the sign's going to go. You've said that it's going to fit in our sign ordinance. That works for me. I know that the CCC has also put out some limitations of what you can and cannot do as a logo and a sign, so I don't really think we need to. That's already protected, so I'm okay if you don't have a logo yet. Is that true that you don't have that information currently?
That is true. I mean, they have a tentative logo, but as you stated, the CCC far exceeds any regulations that the local ordinances have. And again, keep in mind that this is cultivation. So our intention is to not get out and advertise as if we were a dispensary. In fact, if anything, we want this building to be fairly low key. So the signage is going to be minimal. There is no upside to us to market this as a cultivation facility.
Okay. I think at this time, before I'm going to ask if there's anyone in the public in just a moment that wants to comment on this, but I do in the Easthampton Police Department's commentary dated December 14th of last year, where in relation to High Five Inc. and 19 Womelco Way in Easthampton, it says, to whom it may concern, on November 16th, 2020, members of the Easthampton Police Department had a preliminary meeting with High Five Inc. to discuss the project proposal at 19 Womelco Way in Easthampton, Mass. After making recommendations and reviewing the initial site plan and camera plan, I am satisfied with the proposed physical security of the location. Once the security policies and procedures for High Five become available, we will review and make further recommendations. As this project moves forward, the Easthampton Police Department will continually meet with High Five Inc. and make all appropriate recommendations to our satisfactions. Best regards, Robert J. Alberti, Chief of Police. So I want to read that into the record. I don't have any other documents that I think need to be read in. Curtis, did I miss anything there?
Not that I can think of. I'll just double check really quickly.
Okay. And while he's looking for that, is there anyone here from the public that wants to comment on this? If so, please state your name and address. Anyone help me out, guys, if you see anyone?
No, I don't see anyone other than the people currently highlighted and Zoe from the mayor's office. Hi, Zoe.
Okay. So I think what I'd like to do, and I'm just going to feel the board out if you disagree, but I think I'm going to ask you to come back with a plan that shows the lighting, especially and specifically where those poles are going to go. I don't necessarily require that you show me details on the type of lights. I take your word for it that are going to be downward facing. I just want to be concerned, I want your assurance and to see the placement of the sign and the lights on the plan. Do you think you'd be able to do that?
Yes. Yeah, we can do that.
Okay, great. The other real issue is sort of not knowing about the odor. That causes me some hesitancy. I'm going to think about it. If there's any information at all that you decide you could provide between now and the next meeting to show us that other about what you've been thinking about using, how it might work, that might go some distance in giving us a little bit more to work with there. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I have a observation on the odor question, which is, if there is a difficulty of getting the exact system plans ready and before the board, I think this came up, and I've been trying to remember where this came up and when for which project, but there could be. One of the things,
the bottom of Eastworks, and they were venting right out onto the street. Remember that one?
That might be it.
That was the one.
The one other option, and I think this comes from time having dealt with these and seen some of these, is if it's not necessarily the exact system, it's the maintenance of it. And one thing that I had recalled, the health agent said, if she gets a violation, if she gets a complaint and she can corroborate it, her course of action is to go, I think this is where I'm long-winded, but her course of action would be to go talk to the operator and find out what can they do to enhance the system. When was the last time they changed the filters? Is there anything else that could be put in place to try to correct the measure? And I'm wondering if there's a 2-week period here, maybe that's something that Curtis could provide to the board and I think it would be in consultation with the applicant, is what kind of condition would work to say, okay, so the system is in place and functioning, but there's a problem. The planning board special permit could say that the applicant shall resolve and work diligently to resolve or upgrade the system to mitigate the odors, to make it clear that if there's a problem, we don't want to just hear that there's a problem. We want to know that there's a solution. So maybe there's a condition that can be worded and crafted to give the city enough authority to really push the operator to address the problem, right? So to upgrade it, maybe there's another enhancement. Maybe it hasn't been cleaned. So, Member Zarvis, I don't know if that would go.
It would. That would, I think, solve the problem for me. I don't know. I may be the only one that is even a little bit concerned about it, but I think that would be an excellent condition if it's something the applicant would consider, and we'd have to come up with wording for it.
Right.
And I'm not sure if it would be some sort of like a an annual review with the health department? Even if it was, do they have enough money to go do something, or do they regularly do something? You know, we're not enforcement, so sorry, go ahead.
I would just be I'd like to get the health department's work, opinion on this, because in the discussions we had at the sort of pre-meeting was that essentially she has the ability to shut us down, fine us, and stop us. And, certainly just as from an investor point, I'd be reluctant to put something in there that is yet again another way for us to be potentially shut down on kind of an arbitrary item that leaves a lot of room for interpretation as far as what is odor. Is there, one person on the bike path comes by and says, "Oh, it stinks," and calls the Board of Health? Do we get shut down? I mean, it's a very difficult item to establish a benchmark of what one person finds offensive versus another finds totally acceptable. And I think, behind Eastworks and the Keystone of things is a perfect example. I mean, that can be a very strong odor at times, and yet nobody's complaining. Somebody does complain, the way they function now for years suddenly becomes something that you could be shut down over. And we're not talking about equipment that's, $5,000. You're talking about tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars for this equipment and the ducting of it. And you're also stopping production of a facility that's, hopefully going to do several $1 million a month in product sales. So I certainly want to try to resolve it and set people at ease, but I just need to make sure that we go about it in a way that also, in terms of investors and the owners, we're not putting them out there in a position that they can just kind of randomly be shut down because, a passerby made a complaint.
I respect that, and I understand completely your position. I think it would be mine were I in your position. I think an easy way to mitigate it would be a complete odor plan. So, but what we need to do is to find some way in the middle, I think, that gives you assurances and gives us assurances. I think there still might be a way to come up with something, as Jeff suggests, that maybe doesn't require hard work and regular checkups on the health inspector, but just as an assurance on your part that that you will work to mitigate, complaints and issues. I don't know. We're going to have to talk about that.
So one possibility would be language like the applicant will, the board finds that approves the project and a condition that the applicant works to meet the satisfaction of the Board of Health as the identified inspector in case of any nuisance complaints on the site or something like that. Additionally, I could find language from other decisions in other communities regarding odor and see if any of those meet with the approval of both the applicant and the Board of Health director.
Yeah, and definitely please do, as Jess suggested, work directly with the applicant. That way
that's
when
exactly.
we come together.
I'm sensitive. You've stated your sensitivity to the applicant's concerns, and I share them. Whatever language I find, I'll forward as a document to yourself, Kevin, and to the Board of Health.
Yeah, I'll speak with our consultants and see if we can get a, kind of a generic plan. Like I said, I'd be very reluctant. And in fact, it's almost impossible to start speaking to, say, model numbers. And quite frankly, I don't know that, without you going to a consultant of your own, what that would mean to anybody. If I tell you it's model, 2500 ERV, well, maybe it makes you feel better, but does anybody really know how effective that particular model is? So, I mean, obviously, I've been in the community a while. Our company's been here since day one. It's very important that we put out a good product, but I know that that's not quite enough to always satisfy things. But I'll speak with our consultants and see what we can do to try to establish language on our end that would, make folks feel comfortable that if it is a nuisance odor, it can certainly be addressed.
Okay. So I think that we've got a plan here. What's the next date that we might consider this, Curtis?
So our next meeting is going to be, I think it's the 2nd. Yeah, it's February 2nd at 6 p.m.
Okay. Would that work for you, Mr. Perrier?
Yep, that works.
So the only, sorry to interject, the only question I had was more just process related. It seems like there will be lighting details provided. We have a question with the city engineer, and so there's a small chance that something could change with respect to the drainage in response to the city engineer. We always transmit it, so we would follow follow up with the city engineer and ask for that. But barring that, it seems to me, my observation is that the board is generally comfortable with the use in the location, except for kind of how we can best handle the odor, whether it's all the detailed information or a condition. So my question would, the process that's worked, the process that's worked extremely well is potentially either consider the 2nd or even possibly the 16th, but in that interim time have Curtis draft a decision so that it has all the other necessary findings for the board, and then the conditions could be listed, and that would really move the project a lot closer to the finish line, because I think in as many cases as possible to get to this point and then have a draft decision at the next meeting is going to enable us to produce better decisions. I think Member Zarvis has some questions about the amount that we read, which I think is fine, but I think having it.
I don't disagree at all. Make it so, number one.
What's that?
I said, I'm talking to Curtis. Please make that happen.
So essentially, we could have we could maybe condition this mechanical system that we could possibly approve it at a later date, or that the certificate of occupancy is contingent upon us approving the mechanical system, or something to that effect.
If I heard Mr. Perrier correctly, I mean, I think even prior to the issuance of a building permit, the final mechanical plans come back to the board for review, but the condition of the permit will be that after it's installed, it's maintained and there's some kind of level of responsiveness in case of a complaint. I mean, I think I was trying to look, we have probably 2 examples of projects that have dealt with odor. One's probably cannabis related, the other is not. So I think we have a little bit to draw from. But I just think the board's going to be better suited at the next meeting to have a draft decision to really make really clear findings for this project.
Yeah.
So,
and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't INSA, don't they provide an annual report of their inspections and of their systems, or no? Do they provide that to a city?
It's all, we'd say it's a work in progress. I think the zoning requires the annual inspection, and I don't know, to be honest, if it's been happening or not. Okay. The scope is the thing to think about in terms of what would be happening in that annual inspection. But I think giving Curtis I know, Mr. Perry, you can chime in, but I know time is money, and that's a really pertinent analogy. But if the board continues to February 2nd, there's a small chance that you would still need another meeting to button up the written document. So what, if you don't mind, Mr. Zarvis, what would happen, Mr. Perrier, if the board picked this back up on the 2nd meeting in February 16th, and then was able to render a decision that evening?
I mean, honestly, it's not ideal, but if that's our path of least resistance, again, it goes back to kind of some investor issues that without the special permit, they are somewhat stalled in terms of solidifying the investment financing for the project. This is a major piece. So it's kind of a catch-22 where at least if we had the February 2nd and we knew we had approval, and and we were drafting it, because then we still have the appeal period. But if we can't make the 2nd, then we'll have to do the 16th, I guess.
I definitely agree asking Curtis to come up with that document. Curtis, what do you think how much time you need to work with the applicant to do that? Do you think the 2nd meeting or the 2nd?
I think the meeting on February 2nd, I can definitely have something pulled together. I think to my goal right now, the notes I'm taking for myself, is that in the course of this upcoming week, so the week we're currently in, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm going to communicate with Kevin and with the Board of Health and just say the board was looking for some language along these lines, draft that language, put it together, and just make sure I get people's initial temperature on that. And then after that point, I'll incorporate that language and everything else we've discussed into a draft decision, which the board will be prepared to review at the 2nd, and then we can go from there.
And Mike, based on what I'm sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, sorry. Because we were not in the office. It's hard. Like, I don't get to see Curtis very often. So I think right on your immediate to-do list would also be to touch base with the city engineer, because we have to make sure that he would have a finding on the the impervious surfaces.
Stormwater input as well. Yep, there's going to be a couple of different city departments to speak to. Also, speaking on city departments, and again, this may not be a matter. This is not something I'm recommending that the planning board condition, but it is something we want all parties to be aware of. Has there been any ongoing dialogue with the Conservation Commission, Kevin? Have they made any determinations on the basis of the DEP wetlands that are nearby?
Yes. I have pull up an email here. I received an email on where to go here from Casey last week.
Great.
She had emailed me that she brought it to the board on 11/16, and they determined that there will just be a request for determination that will be necessary for the fence. So she sent the paperwork, gave the meeting schedule, and said that it should be a simple process.
Okay.
Okay. So it looks like we're about to motion to put this out to the second. Jeff suggested maybe the next one because there's a lot of boards that may happen. I think that we might need to consider that it might still get pushed to that second one because maybe we won't get responses from other people. But if we can target and try to hit the second, I think that's, better for you. We want to always try to do the best we can for businesses in our community in terms of timing and be accessible. So let's strive for the second. One last question for you before I ask for a motion on that. A lot of the retail businesses, but I'm not sure, I honestly don't know if it's required with cultivation. Did you have to have a meeting, like a community meeting with the abutters or anyone else in the area?
Yeah, there was a host or a community outreach meeting that had occurred. That's needs to be done prior to the host community agreement.
Did people show up to that? Did that?
My understanding is nobody had shown up to that. I mean, honestly, we know the neighbors there, so anybody that kind of falls within that, we know fairly well, and I don't think anybody had any type of issues with it going in.
Okay. Any final questions from the board? Then I'm looking for a motion to continue this to February 2nd.
All right, I move to continue High Five Inc. seeking a special permit under Section 10.10 and 12.9 to operate a cannabis cultivator, cannabis product manufacturer at 19 Lamelco Way to February 2nd.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
Okay, Austin seconds. All right, all in favor of Chris?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
Austin?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. All right. We look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
All right. Well, alas, Jesse isn't with us. We do have 4 items on our new business. However, it's reduced because so there's only 2 items left there. But it looks like review and discussion of the draft open space and recreation plan is next. I'm definitely going to need a refresher here from where we stand. I think that we just kind of gave a little bit of a kumbaya last meeting that things were looking great there, but I don't remember if we had an act. Curtis?
Oh, I'll handle this one. So I transmitted a draft copy of the open space plan. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
And what I'm hoping to ask the board for is a letter of support. And there was a draft attached to the package. I don't need it right now, so I would encourage the planning board members to take a look through the draft plan, and if on the February 2nd meeting the board could just acknowledge that they're comfortable issuing a letter of support. It's something we're trying to submit additional supporting information with that. So there's no urgency. There's no action needed at this moment, but I did
see that. I don't personally have any issue with it. So, I mean, maybe you want Jesse to be here too for that, which I understand completely because, I'd like to be inclusive. But from my perspective, I don't see a need to wait. Would you prefer we wait?
It's not necessary. I definitely didn't want to put the board into a position of feeling rushed. I mean, if you were okay with it, I don't even know that we technically need a vote. Just knowing that as board members, you're supportive if Jesse signs it on behalf of the board. It'll go in with, when we submit it back to the state, it'll go in with that.
Right. So the sample letter looks like it's signed by Peg, City Council President, but really we would change that to Jesse.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I mean, I agree. I think why wait? Let's just get the letter drafted up, have Jesse sign it. I think the sample letter is excellent.
Okay.
But it actually says on blank date, the planning board voted unanimously to recommend submission. So are we actually voting?
Yeah. All right. Sorry.
Yeah, okay. I guess that the way it's written, we can either have you modify it or we can vote. And I'm fine with voting if you want to make a motion. But let's just get it. I want to make sure that Harry and Austin are good with this as well. Harry?
Yeah, I'm fine.
I'm comfortable.
Austin. All right. So it looks like we need a motion to approve the letter of support drafted to the City Council for the open space and recreation plan. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second the motion.
All in favor? Harry?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Austin?
Aye.
And I am an aye.
And are we also voting to recommend submission? Because it says has voted unanimously to recommend submission of the plan to the Division of Conservation Services. Are we also doing that, or is that acceptable enough?
Yes, fine. Let's do it.
Yeah. I vote to recommend submission of the plan to the Division of Conservation Services.
Is there a second? Okay, perfect. All in favor, Chris?
Aye.
Austin?
Aye.
Harry?
Aye.
And I am an aye. And of course, Jesse will have the ultimate vote with his signature on this document. So I think we're all unanimous.
And I don't think there's anything else on the agenda because I think you covered that. I just want to quick remind that the other planning-oriented document that we have underway is the housing production plan. So that is one where the planning board will formally vote to adopt it. And I've been a little bit behind, so I'm trying to catch up. And I'll send an email to this effect. But originally we talked about a joint meeting with City Council, and that is still set to happen, but the date has shifted a little bit. So I just wanted to see if each of you could help me just look at February 17th, which is a Wednesday evening. And the idea is that you, as a planning board, would convene on Zoom with the City Council. You would hear a presentation from the consultant, and then City Council would vote, and then the planning board would vote to adopt. So I'm trying to scope.
They're having other items on the agenda, right? So we're not necessarily first. We could be at 7 o'clock or 7:30. We don't know when.
The beauty of going all the way to February 17th, and I'm going to confirm this, was that they're going to set a time, 6:15, and it'll be that item that starts at 6:15.
Great.
I'm good.
Okay.
That sounds good. Now, do we have anything on the planning board meeting the day before on the 16th yet? We've got things for the 2nd, but do we have anything for the 16th at this point?
Yeah, for that I'll defer to Curtis. I think you will potentially have something.
Yes, there's a submittal for Captain Jack's, which is going to be going for a special permit for drive-in restaurant at its current location, 114 Northampton, directly to the right of Apical. Their goal is not to. They're going to have a very sparse application because their application purpose is to submit for a temporary special permit, which will die with them going. Well, which will cease being operated by the applicant at such time as they go into the co-op.
But you've said that this application will start hearing on the 2nd of February?
Yes.
So,
it's been advertised such that it could.
Okay. But it might come up on the 16th instead, potentially.
Yep. Y'all could continue it if you wanted on that.
Yeah. I'm just trying to not have 2 meetings in 1 week, but if we have to, we have to. All right.
Okay. I can amend right now such that it goes to the 16th if that's the pleasure of the board.
Yeah. We're good.
It was the opposite.
Oh, okay.
It's all good. It's all
That's
good.
what I get for being tired. Yeah, no, it's going on the 2nd. You're all set.
Okay, yeah. All right, everyone. Is there? Does anyone have any announcements or want to give an update on anything?
No.
No. Where's Harry? He's always here for this.
No.
Okay.
Got late. No announcements.
All right. In that case, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second the motion to adjourn.
All right. All in favor. Austin.
Aye.
Harry.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
and I have a fantastic evening, my friend.
Thank you, everybody.
Pleasure
Take care.
working with you. Curtis, I want to say thank you for helping me while I was on my phone.